Puck goes into Neighbors. Nice play. Stops it in behind the net. Spence ties him up. Blues get it back. Off of the goaltender, Butch Navich. It comes loose. They can't find it. The goalie's scrambling. They score! Pavel Butch Navich finds the puck on the doorstep. Bangs it home. Bolduc, a partial break. He shoots. He scores! Zack Bolduc, a breakaway goal. That'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. A 4-1 win tonight for the Blues over the LA Kings in their first of 3 meetings this week. And the Blues have won 4 games in a row. They're 3 games over 500.
It's very enjoyable to watch our team play as committed as they are for each other. It's very selfless hockey going on right now. How excited the bench gets, no matter who scores. The block shots at the end, the unselfish changes, changing at the right time. Middle lane drives, boxing out at the net, sacrificing for each other. All of those things make it fun to watch right now.
Oh, with Alex and T-Bone on BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I know the Blues lost yesterday. I know that, Alex. I don't care. The process was good, baby. Okay. And you know I'm the champion of the process over here on BK and Ferrario. They looked awesome last night. At 5-on-5. Now, set aside what happened on the PK. We don't have to talk about that right now.
That didn't happen.
We asked for this team to go on a run. We needed them to have some kind of a point streak or a winning streak, and they finally have done both of those things. They have points in 8 of their last 10 games. They finally went on at least a 3-game winning streak. So we can now talk about them as a legitimate threat to make the postseason. So much so, Alex, that yesterday when we woke up, they were favored among the 3 teams that are likely, at least contenders for that final spot in the Western Conference wildcard. They were the favorite of the 3 to make it into the postseason. They have about a 33% chance, according to MoneyPuck.com, to make the playoffs as of today. The other 2 teams, the Flames and the Canucks, are at 31% and 30% to make it to the postseason. In other words, hey, man, go ahead. It's a crapshoot here. Mm-hmm. It's a 1 in 3 chance one of these 3 teams is going to make it. We can't tell you who it is, but one thing that is in the Blues' favor right now, in all of the NHL, nobody has a weaker remaining strength of schedule than the St. Louis Blues. Not a single team. They have the easiest remaining schedule in the league. Now, that doesn't take into account like travel and all that stuff that we could go into, but based on the winning percentage of the opposition, nobody will face a weaker opposition down the stretch than your St. Louis Blues. And right now, they're point back. 3-1-1 coming out of this break, Alex. They basically outplayed the Jets, Avs, Caps, Kings, and Stars.
Yep.
What do you make of it? Where are you out the St. Louis Blues right now?
We are back, baby. We are back. We are back. That's what I make of this one. You exited that Four Nations break with games against Winnipeg, Colorado, Seattle, which doesn't really matter, Washington,
Kick the crap out
LA,
of them.
and Dallas. Out of a possible 12 points, you picked up 9. 9 out of a possible 12 points in the stretch of hockey that you just played, with 4 of those teams being top dogs in their division or in their conference. And on top of that, you made up ground that we didn't think was possible. That's the biggest thing. The Four Nations tournament break was over. The Blues set 7 points out of a playoff spot. They now are 1 point out of a playoff spot. You made up, or I'm sorry, they were 8 points out. You now sit 1 point out. You made up 7 points in the 6 games that you just played. And mind you, you just played those games in an 8-day stretch. Like, you played a lot of hockey in a condensed time, and you went out there and you got your job done. You put yourself in the conversation now. Now it's not so much about the schedule helping you. It's more so you just put yourself in the driver's seat. You control your own destiny. And I didn't expect them to do that. I didn't expect them to compete with Winnipeg, with Colorado, with Dallas, with LA, and with Washington. But they not only competed, they were the better team than those teams at even strength. Special teams is a different conversation. But look, I had this one coming off of that weekend stretch against the Jets and the Avalanche, and then when they beat the Capitals. The Kings, you gave up 7 high-danger scoring chances against, but that's still 6 straight games where you have given up fewer than 8 high-danger scoring chances.
At 5-on-5.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything about the Blues are doing. Jim Montgomery has harped on the process. He said, I'm not caring about the
Smart
day-to-day
man.
stuff. Nope. Let's just shut your mouth there and let me finish before we worry about that. He's talked about the process and the habits of his team. He said, we're not worried about the playoffs. Joe said last night on pregame with me, they're not even talking about the playoffs as the coaching staff. They know where they're at in the standings. They're more focused on making sure the consistency that their team is trying to play, the brand that Jim Montgomery is trying to play, carries over from day to day. And I don't know about you guys, but this has looked like the same team since they opened up against the Jets all the way up to last night against the Dallas Stars. That's a win in the Blues book.
Yeah, it's no longer not as small of a sample size. You have now seen it bleed into the next game over and over and over again in a positive way. In the past, when things bleed over into the next game, a lot of the times it was, oh, here comes that snowball. It's going down the mountain. It's about to become an avalanche. And it was not good for the Blues. Instead, man, they keep building this momentum. They're playing the right way, quote unquote, right now. That top line looks like a legitimate top line in the NHL. Zack Bolduc looks like a completely different player coming back from this break. He's been spectacular for them. Dylan Holloway looks like he's got his legs back to him. Phil Broberg looks awesome right now. And you could say the same thing about like Booch and Thomas. They just look healthy. It seems pretty clear to me, and after hearing Booch over the weekend, he made a reference to it, I think for the first time, where he's even saying, like, yeah, I'm healthy. I can move again. That seems to help me out a little bit. They just look like a different team right now.
Yep.
And it's been really fun to watch. I agree with what Monty said after the game, where he's like, hey, listen, I'm enjoying watching our team right now. I agree with him. They look like a good hockey team. They're playing all of the right ways. Yes, they've got to get this PK figured out, man. They've got to get that thing figured out. It's a problem for them right now. But at 5-on-5, which is like roughly 45 minutes of every game at a minimum most nights, they actually are outplaying the opposition. That's really all I can ask for currently. That tells you more about what the style of play is over the long haul than anything else. They've got a chance. I haven't been willing to say that for a while, but right now, if you want it, and Alex will, if you wanted to try to convince me that this team's going to make the playoffs this year, I am now ready for that conversation. It's the first time I've been able to say that basically since Monty took over. I'm now ready to have that conversation.
I mean, I don't know. I think the Blues and the teams around them do the convincing. I mean, look at what Calgary has done over their last 10 games, 3-5-2. Look at what Vancouver's done over their last 10 games, 4-5-1. Utah is right in the same position that you are, but they're 1 point behind you. Yes, they have a game in hand, but you've scored more goals than them, and you've been a better defensive team than them. Mike said this on Friday with us. You're better than Calgary. You're better than Vancouver. You're better than Utah. Two of those teams are probably going to sell at the deadline. I don't know what the Blues are going to do at the deadline, but frankly, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, Jim Montgomery has a knack for getting his team to buy in. Like, this has been a trend for wherever he's been. Dallas, Boston. When his team invests in what Jim Montgomery is telling them, you see the benefits, meaning the wins, and then they all play. They all pull on the rope the same way.
What do you mean by that?
So I did my digging last night because I was bored. Not really.
Nerd.
2018-19 was Dallas's first year, or Jim Montgomery's first year in Dallas. The previous year, they missed the playoffs for 2 consecutive years. Jim Montgomery comes in, albeit it was a full season with Dallas. This one, he come in the middle of the season. 61 games was where the Blues were at last night that they had played in the NHL. 61 games in with Jim Montgomery first year with Dallas. That team was in a wild card spot, but they were middle of the pack. They had a .542 point percentage. The Blues in 61 games had a .533 point percentage. Not in the wild card spot, but 1 point out. The final 21 games, they went 13-6-2. Dallas did, under Jim Montgomery. That got them to the playoffs with 94 points. 13-6-2 for the Blues would put them in a playoffs. I don't know if it would put them in a playoff spot. It would put them at 93, 94 points. Probably for how this is going right now. Jim Montgomery did this with Dallas. They were a middling team in every category you can look at. Frankly, their offense was terrible that Jim Montgomery season. I think they were bottom five. Their defense got better as the season went on. I think they ended the year second or first best team in terms of goals allowed. But power play, penalty kill, middle of the pack. He had a team that was elite in one area that went on a run down the stretch to get into the playoffs. And what'd they do? They beat their first-round opponent, got to the second round to 7 games with the Blues. They've only missed the playoff once since the 2018-2019 season. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Jim Montgomery has now gotten a team invested that 13-6-2 could put them in the same position, and you might be able to get into a playoff spot. This is a better offense than what Montgomery had in Dallas that first year. He had a better goaltending, at least playing the way that Ben Bishop was versus how Jordan Bennington's playing. But go ahead and look at that roster from 2018, 2019 with the Dallas Stars. And you tell me that team was better than what the Blues have.
So right now, the Blues are 29, 27, and 6. If they win in their next game against LA, they will be going into the trade deadline at 30, 27, and 6. 30, 27, and 6. The 2019 Stars that you're referencing, Alex, at that same point in the season were 31, 27, and 5. They had one more win than where you are at that same point in the regular season. Now, you could make an argument that team was better. I think really the reason we remember them that way is because of what they ended up doing in the postseason. Like, you will remember them for what happened in the playoffs, not necessarily what happened in the regular season. They also did one thing at an elite level. They did not let you score. They were an unbelievable goal prevention team. They were second in the league that year. And if you're looking at the St. Louis Blues, it's going to be different. They're going to go about it a little different than the 2019 Stars did. They are a team that is just pretty well-rounded right now. They're kind of middle of the pack in goals for, middle of the pack in goals against, middle of the pack in power play. Terrible on the PK, but they do everything pretty well. And if you just look at the time since Jim Montgomery has taken over, I think they're like top 10 in the league in goals for. So maybe you could argue that's their elite level thing. They also just have an elite goaltender, potentially, when he's on the top of his game. And since the break, Jordan Bennington has been playing at an elite level.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun to watch, man.
And to your point, when Jim Montgomery took over, the Blues, or since then, the Blues have a 2.8 goals allowed per game, which is 13th best in the NHL.
Middle of the pack, good enough.
Yeah, they're a 3.05 goals for, which, once again, middle of the pack. It puts you at 12th in the NHL. But
they're just doing it a little. Yeah. If you combine them, 25th in the league, right?
Right.
Overall, when you combine the two rankings. For the Stars, they were like 30th in the league because they were second on, or they were like top 5 on one and then bottom 5 in the NHL.
Right. But I'll isolate it to the since the nation's break, because this, we all agree, is a different team than what we saw prior to that. 5th most goals scored per game in the National Hockey League, 8th fewest goals allowed in the National Hockey League. And you take the even strength side of it, they're top 3 in both categories. Even strength,
like an elite team.
They've been awesome. And special teams is where they suck.
Sometimes you can
that's it.
It's fine.
wash this away and saying, hey, there's a massive caveat here. They're playing against poor competition. That has not been the case for the Blues, dude. They're going up against some of the top contenders, not just in the Western Conference, but overall to win the Cup this year. Winnipeg, Colorado, Washington, LA, Dallas. These are real contenders.
Yeah.
Not just like Calgary and teams that are fighting for these wild card spots, Detroit, something like that. Now, these are teams that their sights are set at the deadline to saying, what do we need to add to go hoist that cup over our head at the end of this season? Pretty damn impressive what we're watching right now.
And they're not fluky wins either.
No,
because
not at
like
all.
I don't remember which game it was. There was a win earlier in the season where they won, and it was
the
like
Devils game.
Yeah, it was like 3-1 or something. And then you like watch that game and you left going,
Devils
how
had
did they
18
win
high
that
danger
one?
scoring chances in that game.
That was the opposite of what happened last night for the Blues.
Yeah, last night you walked away going, how did we lose that game?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how, because your penalty kill doesn't know how to stop.
Yeah, penalty kill. Parayko, the controller stopped for him for a second.
It happens.
Hate when that
Somebody
happens.
unplugs it. You know, they just tripped over it.
It's always at the worst time.
Batteries died, and you're
Yeah.
like, God bless it! Don't walk by the remote!
And it's never when you're on a breakaway. Oh, damn.
They looked good. They looked good last night. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK.
Say it, buddy.
It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
We are back!
The Blues have suddenly
Say it when we're in the playoffs.
emerged with 2 of the top producing lines in the NHL.
What?
How the bleep did that happen? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
They are. They're playing tremendous hockey and the right way and the right brand of hockey. And that's, on the right side of the puck defensively. And, it's funny how it works. You get rewarded offensively. They're doing things the right way as well. So great to see the total team effort here.
That's what it sounded like after the game on Saturday. That's Steve Ott, Blues assistant coach, talking with the broadcast team here on 101 ESPN, talking about the Blues top line. And Alex, they are producing like a legit top line in the NHL. With Alex and T-Bone and BK, we've seen this in the past. When Booch and Thomas have been together, there have been times where it looks like one of the best line configurations in the league. We've talked about this with Jeff Merrick, who's told us, hey, those guys are great. They're legit top-line players, even if that's not how people feel in St. Louis. Well, right now, you look at the line combinations across the league. And if you just go by goals for per 60 minutes, goals for per game that they are on the ice, the Blues have 2 of the top 13 line combinations in the league right now in that regard. This is not a process stat. That is a when they are on the ice, how often are you scoring? For Booch, Thomas, and Neighbors, they are scoring 4 goals for every 60 minutes that they are on the ice, which is unbelievable. Lines that are behind them, just as an example, the Crosby line, the Stamkos line, the Point line, the Hughes line, the Eichel line. We're talking McKinnon line with
number one
Rantanen.
centermans.
Talking about a lot of the best lines in the league. Hey, Winnipeg, Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde, that's a pretty good line, right? Scoring at a lower rate than both Pavel Buchnevich, Thomas, and Neighbors, and the Blues' second line right now, which is Holloway, Shin, and Kyrou. Alex, what do you make of this? Because this suggests that it's not just a recent increase in their production. This has been happening for a while now, but now we're really starting to see that emerge, especially with Holloway playing the way that he has, and Booch has really turned it on since that Four Nations face-off.
That's where it's at for me. Number one in this is health. Pavel Buchnevich was not healthy before that Four Nations tournament. Not meaning nobody's healthy right now, but whatever was nagging him to the point that it was affecting his play. And I also think some confidence falls into that one. Robert Thomas was not 100% prior to that Four Nations tournament. 2 weeks off was massive for those 2 players. And Jim Montgomery referenced it after the game on Saturday because somebody said, hey, when did the turning point happen? He said it was our first practice back where Alexei Toropchenko threw a reverse check into Pavel Buchnevich, knocked him down, and Pavel Buchnevich jumped up and had a big smile on his face. He said that incentivized the rest of the team to bring a little bit more fire to their game. And Pavel Buchnevich has been eating checks from the opposition so that he can make plays. And look at where they're going to score goals. This isn't off of the rush and they're playing 2-on-1 hockey. They're standing in front of the net, picking up rebounds and taking the blows that come with that. So health is number 1 and consistency is number 2. They haven't changed these line combinations since they've returned from the Four Nations break. It's been Neighbors, Thomas, and Buchnevich. It's been Holloway, Shen, and Kyrou. There was a lot of juggling around the lines and saying it's not looking really good. Let's put it back this way. No, they've kept it there. And when you get the consistency with the health, you've got a top line. So Thomas and Buchnevich were the things that were making this piece go. Before the break, we were talking about how, they've checked every box that we've been asking for. Holloway's looked great. Broberg's looked great. They've got a number 1 defenseman. Defensively, they're jumping into the rush, creating offense. Their 4th line's playing well. It just was Thomas and Buchnevich. So what makes this engine go? When you have a number 1 line that is projecting or scoring goals at 4 times every time they step on or in a game, now the opposition's like, cool, we have to shut down that line. But then you've got Holloway, Shen, and Kyrou who have had chemistry for about 2.5 months. Well, now we got to shut down that line. And then when Zack Bolduc's coming up with goals, it's like, what the bleep just happened? So you've got depth. Montgomery said it. You've got 4 lines that are playing the same way. That's why you're seeing these top lines have success.
So when you look at it and what that top line in particular has done for the Blues since the Four Nations face-off, this is over the last, 6 games now? They're outshooting the opposition 41-23. They're outscoring them 7-6. They've outchanced them in high-danger areas 17-6. And 5 of their 7 goals, Alex, since the Four Nation face-off at 5-on-5 have been in the high-danger variety.
Yep.
That means they're getting to the front of the net. They have somebody that has their ass in front of the net at all times. Last night, I thought Jake Neighbors should have been basically credited with a goal.
That Holloway one on the power play.
He was in the crease.
Yep.
The goalie had no chance of seeing that puck. No chance whatsoever. He gets exactly where he needs to be, and that's the kind of stuff that you watch it and you're like, okay, That's probably saved in any other scenario. If Jake Neighbors is just kind of drifting around on the outside and he's not willing to take that kind of punishment in front of the net, it's an easy save for the goalie because it's a shot from pretty well outside, and Holloway has a good shot, but not one that's going to trick him in that regard. Neighbors made that possible. And yes, that's on a power play instead of being a 5-on-5, but it's a credit nonetheless to that player. They're playing legit team hockey right now. They're putting the pucks in the areas where they need to go. They're playing the cycle game. It's not all the rush hockey the way that we saw it right before the break. It just looks like a totally different team. And Alex, it's not just the top players in terms of the top line. It's also the top players in terms of the defensemen.
Yep.
Broberg looks better. He has looked healthy since the break. Cam Fowler, I think, looks awesome right now for the Blues.
Yeah.
And Colton Parayko is continuing to emerge, not just as the best defenseman for the St. Louis Blues, but he's playing like one of the best defensemen in the league right now. He has 15 goals this year already, on pace for potentially getting up to 20 this year as a defenseman, which I didn't think he had in his range of outcomes. And you did. Credit to you. You saw this coming. I did not. What is the level of hockey that we're seeing right now from Colton Parayko?
Norris Trophy level. And I'm here to begin the Norris Trophy campaign for Colton Parayko. Now, he's not going to win it.
You've been on this train for 5 years.
I have, but you know what? Finally, you stick to something, BK, and you'll get there eventually.
Sometimes it takes that long for a campaign to win.
I'm not, you ain't lying there, man. But here, I did my digging because this is what we do, right? First of all, to your point on the defensive group, since the return from the Four Nations break, the Blues defensemen have the most goals, most points, and best plus-minus of any team in the National Hockey League. They've scored 6 goals with 15 assists and are a plus 24.
Jeez.
The next closest team are the Washington Capitals, who have 18 points and are at a plus 2. So that's what you're getting right now from your defense. But Makar and Werenski, in my opinion, that's right, Zach Werenski, BK, he's a real person. Those are the top 2 dogs right now in the National Hockey League. And frankly, I don't think it's going to be possible for anybody to unseat them, frankly, because we know how the Norris Trophy goes. You score a lot of points, you get the trophy.
Fowler and Parayko, when they're on the ice, are averaging 3.6 goals for per 60 minutes.
And I think they're like
number one in the league.
And I think they're like plus 14 when they're out there.
They're supposed to be bad at offense.
And not looking too crazy when I said the Bomeister Parayko comp there, did I?
No, they score, though.
They do score. They score a lot more. So Parayko, since the return from the break, he's tied for first in goals amongst defensemen in the National Hockey League. He is first at even strength goals. He's tied for third in points, and he's got the best plus-minus of any team in the National Hockey League. On the season, he's 6th most time on ice, 4th most goals, tied for first at even strength goals. This was the part that really solidified me on. It's like, this dude should be in the top 5 votes this season. If you take power play points away from the equation for the guys that are in front of Colton Parayko, Zach Werenski would have 43 points on the year. Cale Makar would have 39. Quinn Hughes would have 38. And Colton Parayko would have 34. So he's not going to win it.
Do you want to get mad at me?
Sure, go for it.
Part of being a Norris Trophy candidate defenseman, in my opinion, is having the ability to help on the
What's
power
the
play.
award called? The best defenseman.
Yeah, but
Overall.
it's overall.
Fine.
I just came in here early.
Yeah, no, just don't irk me here. I understand what you're saying, and that's how the trophy goes, which is why I understand he's not going to get the points, or he's going to get the award. But look at what Alex Pietrangelo did in the 2019-2020 season when he got 4th most in votes for the Norris Trophy.
Sure.
Parayko's doing that and more. He's playing the same amount of ice time. He's going to surpass him in goals because Petro had 16 that year. Petro had 52 points that season. I don't know if Parayko gets to 52 points, but a lot of that for Petro was the power play.
I was about to say, that's the thing that's different. The number one thing that's the thing that is holding Parayko back from all of these accomplishments that you're talking about in terms of the award is just the power play.
I understand, and that's why I feel like it should put Colton Parayko in this conversation. Again, I know he's not going to win it. You can't beat Cale Makar and, frankly, what Zach Werenski is doing. But I would judge the best defenseman in the NHL. Yes, the points are important. Power play is a part of this. But how you perform at even strength, to me, is what really tells you. This guy doesn't touch the power play and still eats about 24 and a half minutes a night. Yeah. He's going up against the best team's top line, and he's still producing offense at even strength. Again, I know 1 and 2 are going to be Cale Makar and Zach Werenski, but just like last year when I was campaigning for Binnington to be in the top 3, I'm going to campaign for Parayko to be in the top 3 because Quinn Hughes has been hurt this season, and frankly, their team struggled. Parayko's creating more offense for this team on top, playing top defense.
He's been great for them, and there's really no way to go around that right now. If you're just even if you just want to look at the national coverage of the sport, I think people are finally starting to realize, coming off of that Four Nations face-off, and now that he's at least been in conversations, legit or not, I think we all can agree, not, for trade discussions once again, you're starting to see nationally people recognize Parayko for what he is. He has the most goals at 5-on-5 of any defenseman in the league. More than anybody.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
And he's not scoring it from the blue line with slap shots that are just finding the way in. He's scoring it at the blue line, or he's scoring it in front of the crease in the paint.
Yeah, it's insane what he's doing right now for the St. Louis Blues, and he deserves a ton of credit. He battled through that injury. He's gotten to the other side now, and you're seeing what is a legit number one defenseman. Yeah. This is no longer a top pair defenseman. This is a number one defenseman in every way,
He's an alpha.
Form. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk more about the Blues coming up at the 12 o'clock hour, including another update on Braden Shin. We'll get to that at 12. But coming up next, our friend, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic, Katie Wu, joins the show here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues fell to the Stars over the weekend, and they'll be back in action on Wednesday as they go on a West Coast trip, and they'll visit the L.A. Kings. Well, pregame coverage starting at 8:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Cardinals off today in spring training action. They'll be back in action tomorrow as they've got split squad at Washington and against the New York Mets. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She's Katie Wu, joining us here on BK and Ferrario. She joins us each and every Monday throughout the Cardinals baseball season. Katie, we appreciate the time as always. How are things going down in Jupiter for you?
Well, gentlemen, I hear they're going great. I'm actually off this week. I'll be back in Jupiter this weekend, but I'm sure everyone is enjoying that off day. The 22 days without a day off down there. Pretty much of a grind. So we'll see how it is. I always look forward to the first off day, not because of the no baseball, but because to me that's when camp transitions. And you really have like the important decisions coming up. And all of a sudden these games start to mean a little bit more. You can evaluate player performances a little bit more. And we're starting to see what the opening day roster could maybe shape up to look like.
All right, let's start out with the freak out because, you know, it's a Monday here in St. Louis, which means that people have some concerns, which is typically the case.
No, it's spring training. It doesn't matter.
Katie, the offense has not been good thus far for the Cardinals, and that is a big priority for the Cardinals this season. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much should people care about the lack of success that they've had swinging the bats thus far?
Like a 2?
Okay, cool.
I mean,
That's where I'm at.
I mean, like a 2. It's spring training again, and already it's better than last spring training. Didn't they go like 30 games without a homer last spring? So, you know. Right. No, I'm serious. Things are looking up in that regard. But all jokes aside, I really wouldn't read too much into it, especially with the new hitting coach. There have been different approaches, some swing changes, and those take time to implement in real game action. Take Jordan Walker, for example. You can see a completely different stance on the rare time that a spring training game is televised. And just things like that take time to transfer, again, into the real game action. So while it's not going to be the same for every single player, when you have a new hitting coach and you're implementing a lot of new things, it's going to take a little bit of time to see those results. That's why spring training is like 6 weeks long.
Well, and Katie, that was the 2 that I was going to hone in on because, once again, it is spring training and it's hard to panic. But specifically with Gorman and Jordan Walker, I do think you wanted to see at least feeling like strides were going in the right direction. And it's not that they're not hitting, it's they're not even making contact with the strikeout problem. But is that due to this new batting stance that both are trying to implement?
I think so. Again, guys, this is going to take time, and I totally understand why there is so much scrutiny over Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. I mean, the organization itself has said that it's imperative to figure these 2 players out. I mean, they're building a whole reset. If you, we're not allowed to call it that anymore.
It's a transition, Katie. It's a transition, Katie.
A whole new transition.
There you go.
On if Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman can hit at a big league level. So, look, I understand it was a long off season. We're all itching to get back to analysis. Trust me, so am I. But now is not the time. If our April performances look like this, then we can hit the freak out button. But right now, we just got to give these guys some time to implement these changes, see how it plays against big league pitching. They're not going to adjust on the fly. And again, that's why baseball has spring training, so that they can take some time for games that don't matter. Cardinals fans, these games don't matter. And, you know, see that these changes can maybe be implemented during the regular season.
All right. Katie was our guest here on 101 ESPN. Katie, on the other side of things, sometimes there are positives that come out of Cardinals camp. You were down there for, 2 weeks to just watch them play baseball, whether that was on the backfields or in these games that they've been playing now for about 10 days. What is something that stood out to you? Positive, negative, somewhere in between? What stood out to you about the Cardinals in your time down there in Jupiter?
That's a good question. I think what is sticking out to me is the fact that this is still a really competitive camp. And there are plenty of questions that I don't think the organization is going to need every bit of this long spring training to answer. I find the center field area fascinating. We talked about this last week on what they're going to do with Victor Scott, Lars Nootbaar, Michael Stiani. I find catching fascinating. Wilson Contreras looks fine at first base, serviceable. Everything looks good there. And the bullpen, I think, though, is where there are the most questions. And given how good the bullpen was last year, it is so important for the Cardinals to figure out that success behind Ryan Helsley. I caught up with Ryan before leaving Jupiter for a little bit. And this is a guy who thought that maybe he wasn't going to be coming back, who thought for sure he'd be traded. And now he's trying to soak up the potential last year of being a Cardinal, because there's no telling what this team could do with him at the deadline. So while he feels solidified, he also pointed out how important guys like Andrew Kittredge were behind him, Jojo Romero, and the Cardinals need to figure out that segue again. Guys that I'm looking at, Gordon Graceffo has looked really good. I know Matthew Liberatore is being stretched out, but my personal opinion and my gut feeling tells me that he'll be back in the bullpen in a role where he really strived in last year. Jojo looks fine. And then there's some under-the-radar guys on how they're going to piece it together. Nick Anderson is a name I'm watching. The Cardinals like their reclamation projects, right? And Nick Anderson certainly looks like he could be that. He was really good in 2019 for the Rays, searching to find it. But they need kind of one of those older veteran guys to pair with Helsley, because if they don't, they have a really young bullpen. So those are some names I'm watching. I do find, again, the competition level of putting together this active roster to be very fascinating, and also could bring a lot of questions, because as I'm looking at it right now, I'm feeling like I'm asking a lot of the same questions that I was asking last year in terms of roster depth and position redundancy. And I'm wondering if the Cardinals can break off from that.
Nick Anderson, of course, Alex, is a very different player than Nick Robertson, who the Cardinals acquired last year for Tyler O'Neill, as you learned on Friday in our conversation with Eric Kratz.
And, Katie, I also learned from our conversation with Eric Kratz that the Cardinals are very defensive about saying, look, you didn't make any offseason moves. And they said, hey, we brought in Nick Anderson.
It's true.
Oh, they also referenced Bailey Horn, who was optioned or reassigned to Memphis.
Yeah.
Katie, that's not. You're lying.
God, this team's transitioning.
That cannot be true.
It's true.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
We are so winning the Central.
So, Katie, let's talk about the optioning decisions. Not just Bailey Horn, which I'm sure a lot of us are upset about, but it was the Quinn Matthews one, because the man to my left was very adamant about Quinn Matthews potentially starting the season in the rotation.
Not exactly, but
very adamant about it.
Okay.
I am a little surprised, though, Katie, that they sent him down as fast as they did, because it seemingly looked like he was translating to the major leagues, at least through spring training with a couple of starts, pretty well.
It all comes down to innings at this point. Quinn Matthews is going to start in AAA, and he needs to be on a starter schedule. And at this point in spring, starting pitchers go from 2 to 3 innings to 4 to 5. And the Cardinals can't give the innings they need to give to their already established starting rotation and the relievers and the swingman that they're all developing, right? And also give it to Quinn Matthews. So by keeping him at big league camp, they're actually hurting him, because they can't guarantee him the innings. So that's why he was reassigned at this point. Do I think that he's a name that we're going to be talking about all of 2025? Yes, absolutely. Is he going to be like must-watch TV every fifth day for Memphis? Absolutely. But this was all just about mathematically guaranteeing the innings that they need to, and to not just for the big league club, but for Quinn also. I mean, they still have to figure out the bullpen. We just talked about this, which means a lot of extra guys are throwing a lot of extra innings, kind of why they have split squads, to ensure that everyone gets their shot to compete. But this was nothing more than mathematically, we have to keep Quinn Matthews on a starter schedule. He did really well in big league camp. He got, what he was supposed to get out of it. And we'll see him again. But there's nothing more to that just than having to guarantee the number of innings to other people.
Despite what my co-host is saying, that's actually not the one that I was surprised by over the weekend. I had the exact same takeaway.
Bailey Horn was his. You're right, Katie. Sorry.
I was a bit surprised by the Cooper Jerpy decision, Katie, because I had heard last week Ollie Marmol in an interview say he really liked what he had seen from Cooper Jerpy early on in spring. Now, Jerpy is a guy that over the last 2 years combined has not thrown 100 innings. Again, that's over a 2-year stretch. So I thought it was at least possible that they transition him to a bullpen arm this year and then stretch him out beyond that, because there's just not a lot of spots in this rotation for the foreseeable future. It seems like they are taking the same plan, same approach with Jerpy, though, that they are with Quinn Matthews. What is your understanding of how they view him right now inside of the organization?
They view him as a starter, and when you think about, I understand that logic 100%, but when you think about the lack of homegrown starting pitching the Cardinals have developed, they really can't afford to mess up this talent right now. And I think both Cooper Jerpy and Quinn Matthews, Tank Hens, of course, as well, and Tekoa Roby they all have potential to be starting pitchers and legitimate ones in the future for St. Louis. And we've talked about it for almost 3 years now. The last crop of starting pitching prospects that were, homegrown, the Cardinals bounced around a lot, from bullpen to the rotation to Memphis to St. Louis, because they were trying to win that game, and they would do it at the expense of long-term development. They no longer feel the pressures to do that, so they're going to take their time with Cooper Jervey. They're going to take their time with C.K. Roby, Quinn Matthews, et cetera, because there's no need to rush them up. And I guess that is part of the reason why they felt inclined to keep players like Steven Matz and Eric Fetty, because they don't want to put these players in a position where all of a sudden they're rushed to the big leagues to throw innings. That would totally negate the whole purpose of what they're trying to do. So that, to some degree, does make sense to me. Is this an opportunity for guys like Palante and Mike McGreevy to step up before that crop of players I just referenced comes up? I think so. But right now, the Cardinals really want to establish homegrown pitching. You guys see the astronomical prices of the free agent market, especially with starting pitching. We know the Cardinals aren't going to fork over that kind of money, so they have to figure out how to develop internally. It's been a problem for them for years. And, maybe with this new minor league system, the new coordinators and directors they brought in, they're on the right track to figuring that out.
All right. On the other, one more pitching question for you. What's the plan with Gordon Graceffo, based on what you understand?
That's a great question, and I think they're still trying to figure that out. I will say, and this could be me totally overreading into a situation, when we talked about the bullpen and how it was going to piece up with Ollie Marmol the first week of camp, one of the first names he referenced on internal candidates was Gordon Graceffo. And I think with Gordon, if he's going to make the big league club, he'll do so as a reliever, and that makes sense because it's a little different than the starting pitching process we just talked about. For a couple years now, Gordon Graceffo has had a lot of trouble with keeping his velocity consistent. It fluctuates a lot, and his command. He comes out in the first, second, third innings, and that velo is high. His pitchers are lively. There's a lot of run to his fastball. Things look good. Fourth and sixth inning, he runs into a lot of trouble, and this has been a reoccurring pattern. Now, he did a lot of work at Tread over the offseason to figure out why, and the Cardinals are certainly going to give him an extended look to see what he can do. But, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier in this segment. They have to rebuild their bullpen, and if you have a dynamic Gordon Graceffo for 2 innings, is that where his best value is going to be? We saw them with Matthew Liberatore. It worked out really well. Can they develop that from the right side with Gordon Graceffo? I think that's where they could be leaning, but his performance down the rest of spring will dictate that ultimately.
And we'll get Katie Woo out of here on this. You can read her great work over at The Athletic, and be sure to follow her on Twitter at KatieJWoo. Katie, I'm sure you saw this over the weekend. One of your colleagues, I think it's Sam Blum, with The Athletic, wrote about Albert Pujols, who made his return back to Angels camp this weekend. And when asked by reporters about his future as a manager in the big leagues, he said, yeah, I would love to do it. Why not? And then when asked about the timing of it, he said, anytime in the next year, I would love to be a manager sooner rather than later in Major League Baseball. What do you make of that? And how much do you think that's going to be a backdrop to the 2025 Cardinals season?
I'm actually shocked it took this long to get to the Albert topic. I had it in the first 2 questions, honestly, guys.
We had to ease you in, Katie.
Right? It's not surprising that he wants to manage. He said it before. I mean, he said it basically as he was retiring. He's like, this is something I want to do. Sidebar, I'm so excited to see him manage against Yadier Molina, who will manage Puerto Rico in 2026. That will be insane. But no, it's not surprising to me that he wants to do this, and I think he really is open to anywhere. What this means for the Cardinals is a whole different can of worms, because while Ollie Marmol is under contract through 2026, we all know what happens when a new front office is about to take over. Nothing is guaranteed. Now, is this even more weird because for whatever reason the Cardinals are doing this lame duck GM thing that quite literally no other team would do? Yes, it is. But it's really hard to say what the future from a manager point of the Cardinals is, because there's so much up in the air with Chaim Bloom coming in, the contract. It's too early to speculate. So I get it, Cardinals fans. Why wouldn't you want Albert Pujols to manage St. Louis? But I really think he's open to managing anywhere if the opportunity is right. And we will have an entire offseason, perhaps not, to talk about managerial changes. It's just too early to go there.
I'm with you. Had to ask the question at least. Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy your off week. We'll talk with you again next week.
You got it, guys.
Absolutely. That's Katie Woo joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate her time as always. Alex, I want to get to your thoughts on the Albert question coming up in the next segment. We'll also hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario, and we are here with our friends at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, there is one sports betting app that we use, and it is Circa Sports. And the reason why is because when we bet with them, we're going to win the most money possible. You can do that right now if you want to get your futures bet for Major League Baseball. You can do that for the NCAA tournament, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks. You can do that as well. But for me, Alex, I'm already putting down my way too early, insane bets to win the World Series. If you think the Dodgers, for example, are going to go to the World Series and win it, I've got them beating the Red Sox at 35-1 odds. The exacto Dodgers versus the Red Sox, them winning it all. 35-1 odds. You can make that bet today over on the Circa Sports app.
This is why we urge you to download the Circa Sports Illinois app, because you're getting the best money, the best odds possible. Those future bets that BK told you about, or maybe you're just going to put together a 7-leg parlay that includes the Blues on Wednesday night, like I typically do. You're always putting the most money down because you're getting the most in return with Circa Sports Illinois. Plus, if there's issues that pop up, you can always talk to a person, not just a robot. So download the app today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. Let's start out with this. Alex, this was the final question that we talked about with Katie Wu. It was announced over the weekend by Albert Pujols that he would like to be a manager sooner rather than later. Not just for the Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic, which he will do next year, but also for a Major League Baseball team. The question is obvious. Do you think this will be as big of a story now that Chaim Bloom is going to be the next president of baseball operations, and he's going to have a pretty big say, I would imagine, in if Ollie stays as the manager or if they go in a different direction and who that person would be, as it would be if Mo remained in place as the president of baseball operations next year?
Yes, because of the new general manager, president of baseball operations taking over. And with that, as Katie mentioned, you always talk about bringing in new people for that new individual. I'm kind of torn with this one. First of all, I feel like I should plead the fifth because the last time we talked about potential hiring of somebody, we got in trouble for it. So I guess got to be careful with this. But on one hand, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, it's a former player, and I understand your take on this, BK, because he is a superstar and you don't want that image to be tainted. And then on top of it, like, what do you do if it doesn't go well? So I get that side of it. But then the other side of the fence, I'm looking at this going, man, when you've got somebody that pulls players in the way that it seems Albert Pujols is doing with these leagues that he's been a part of, and for how everybody is talking about him being such a player's manager and how he communicates and the type of person he is, I really wonder if you look at this and you say, I don't know if we can pass up on this opportunity with Albert Pujols. I mean, Alex Cora is a guy that has that gravitation as well, where everybody talks about how much of a player's manager he is and how well he communicates, and look at the success he's had in Boston. So I could see both sides of this. I think I would lean more towards, I would hire Pujols.
I don't think it matters that the POBO is changing because I think it's an ownership decision. I think if
good point.
I think if ownership wouldn't be hands-on, and I don't know if they would be or not, if Chaim said, hey, I want to move on from Ollie, I do think the DeWitts would say, hey, we're going through a transition. You just saw our ticket sales, right? Like, let's go out and let's get somebody that the fan base we know is going to love, whether that would be Yadi or Albert. I think that's why, to me, it doesn't matter because ownership's the one that has to sign off on this.
Yeah, agreed on that front. I also think Albert is the guy. Like, I know people want Yadi to be the next manager of the Cardinals, and I get it. I'm not blaming anybody for that. But if there is a decision between the two, it's not close for me.
Yeah,
I would go Albert Pujols.
I would, too.
He would be the guy that I would hire, and it would be like that. If this guy is actually interested in doing it, and it sure seems like he is. He's doing everything, by the way, that's necessary for him to get prepared for this job. I would go with Albert Pujols personally. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Guys, somebody sent in a little chart that's become kind of a thing over on social media where you go down and it's a grid. It's like the immaculate grid stuff where you've got 9 different squares. And on this one, instead of it being like players that have played for 2 different teams, it's a Cardinals player that is great, who was loved by fans. Fans are divided on him and hated by fans.
I've seen these.
Have you seen these over on social media? I want to go through this real quickly with you guys on the current roster. Do you guys believe that the Cardinals have a great player that is currently loved by fans?
Great player loved by fans.
No.
I think so. I would put Wilson Contreras in that category.
Oh, see, I don't know if he's loved by fans. I think he's a great player.
Our morning host doesn't love him.
Oh, that's not the voice of the
one?
fans.
Tim McCrimmon.
Oh, I get that.
He's talked ad nauseum about how it never made sense for the Cardinals to sign him. His biggest question was defense, and this is an organization that values defense maybe above all else, especially at that position.
Fine, but he's the best bat on your team, and he probably shows the most passion of anybody on the team.
I agree, and I think there is a decent segment of the fan base that loves him. I'm not sure that he's loved by all.
Yeah.
I agree
put a
with
poll
Simon.
out, man.
I don't think that the Cardinals have a single great player currently on the roster that is loved by all of the fans. Like Waino was that. Albert was that. Yachty was that. I think those are really the 3, though. I think you have to win a World Series to be truly loved by everybody in this fan base. Was Matt Holliday even loved by everybody in the fan base? Because there was a segment of the fan base that said,
World Series,
not
though.
clutch. Not clutch.
Yeah, I don't know if Holiday was or not. Is Arenado this?
No.
I don't think he's a great.
No.
I mean, he's a great player.
I think-
he's not a
I think-
superstar.
I think Holiday was loved by. I mean,
think
it's hard to say all.
Carpenter, maybe? But even he had his
I would
doubters.
think
Yeah,
Holiday
but
over
by the
Carpenter
end
for
of-
how it ended.
By the end of Carpenter,
Great
no.
player, fans are divided. This, I think, could be either Sonny Gray or Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Great player, hated by fans.
Nolan Arenado's not hated.
I don't know that they have one.
Yeah, I don't think you have
There's just
one.
not very many great players.
Newbar, but I don't know if you call him
I
a
think-
great player.
I think
I would
that
say
one.
Newbar, average player, hated by fans.
I think
That
that
one
one might have been Carpenter. Great player, hated. Like at the end of it.
I don't think Matt Carpenter. I think it gets oversold just how much people hated Matt Carpenter. Matt Carpenter, when you went to the ballpark, got the biggest ovation of anybody on the roster.
Yeah.
On social media, it seemed like everybody hated him. And then you actually see the guy in person, and it's like, dude, everybody sure seems to like this guy. I don't know. It's a weird disconnect between the online fan base and what the people are that are going to the baseball game. So, I don't know. Average player that's loved by fans.
Brendan Donovan.
Is he loved?
Oh, yeah.
See, I was thinking
Scrappy utility, dude. Absolutely.
I was thinking this was probably Wynn.
Oh, Wynn
Could
might
be
be a
Wynn.
great player that's loved by fans, actually.
I don't know if he's
let's
great.
let's
I
pump the
think
brakes
he's
on the
average.
great, all right, BK?
Yeah.
Average
By the way,
player,
he-
fans are divided.
Newbar, right?
Jordan
Didn't we say?
Walker.
Yeah, Newbar is probably the one.
No, that's bad player.
Average
People-
player hated by fans.
Average player hated by fans.
Is Newbar divided or hated?
That would have been
I think
that would have been Taylor Motter.
Newbar might be hated
That would have been Taylor Motter.
just because he can't
No,
stay
he's a bad
healthy.
player.
Maybe Michael Ciani.
I don't know who.
Yeah, I don't know if you had I don't know if you got a guy that. I just don't know if you got a guy
Steven
that's.
Matz?
He's below average.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if you got a guy that's hated on this team.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody that would fit that mold.
Gorman.
Yeah, but he would go
Yeah, I
off
don't
his
even know if
year.
I
the one.
I don't know
if I could
he
put
fits
him in
the category.
average.
Yeah.
If
Coming
we're
off
putting him in the
last year.
same category as Wynn and Donovan, I can't put Gorman in there.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, Donovan, I think, is an average to above average player. I couldn't put him in great, for example. Mason Wynn, I do think, is a great player.
We know, buddy. We know.
From
But either here or
314.
there.
We hate Walker and Gorman. All right, 314 is spoken.
There you go. 314.
Bad
Thank you.
player that's loved by fans. I don't think they have one right now, which is actually a unique place to be as a Cardinal.
Michaelis, maybe? He's a
I
bad
don't
player.
think he's
he's loved?
I think that would
I
be
think
a
there's a decent
divided.
amount. A divided.
I think that's a
fair.
divided
Oh, I
one.
disagree.
Yeah, I don't think this team has a great or a bad player that's
Average
loved.
player that's hated by fans is he's not a player, but it probably is Ollie.
Oh, I would put Michaelis in that. Oh no, Michaelis would be the divided one.
Yeah, Michaelis is bad player hated by fans.
Let's be honest about Ollie. Ollie is the average and hated by fans.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said divided
That's
by.
what I just said.
Sorry, I heard two names going on at once. I thought you said divided. No, okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
I mean, no
a
wonder why
lot
I
of
think
these
this
are
team's gonna
difficult to
stink.
peg for the Cardinals.
Let's do
what
it
would
with
it do for the
now.
Blues? Yeah.
You want to do this real quick on the other side?
Sure.
Coming up next.
Oh, God, this isn't
We're
going to
gonna
be a
play a
good
game
one.
We're going to play this
Twitter.
game with the St. Louis Blues here
We're
on
gonna put a
101
poll out.
ESPN. So we'll get to how this recent stretch of games plays into Doug Armstrong's plans at the deadline here in just a minute, but we got sidetracked by this social media game that people are playing. The player grid. It's kind of like the Immaculate Grid, but a little bit different. So basically, you've got 9 different quadrants. You go in through them, and it's great player, average player, bad player, and then on the other side, the X-axis, so to speak, you got the loved by fans, fans divided, and hated by fans. So you're trying to find a player on your roster that fits into each of these categories, Alex. So we did it with the Cardinals. It was not easy to do. Let's do it with the St. Louis Blues and see if we can figure this thing out before we go into what the plans are for Doug Armstrong.
It should be easy.
Great player, loved by fans.
I would say that's Parayko or Bennington, one of the two.
I think Jordan Bennington.
That's who I was thinking. Yeah, I'd say Benner.
I think you could do one of the two, but yeah, Benner makes the most sense.
I think Bennington, he's a Stanley Cup winner, stood on his head, first ever guy. I think he is the great player that's loved by fans right now.
Yeah.
Great player that fans are divided on. I have my nominee for this.
Is it who
I think
I'm
it's
thinking?
Colton Parayko.
Oh, I was thinking Cairo.
I don't know if people are divided on Parayko.
I have my nominee for this, Jordan Kyrou.
I was going to say, I think Jordan Kyrou would be this one.
Okay.
Actually, I don't even know if I could put Kyrou. I think Kyrou is going to be on the next category.
Okay.
The average.
No, the great player that
that
people hate him. I think, and nothing's going to change for Kyrou's been awesome this year, and people still don't like him.
And who's the great player fans are divided on? Is it Pavel Buchnevich?
Probably. Because I was going to say Shen, but I don't know if Shen falls into the great player conversation. And frankly, I think
agree.
he's going to be a middling or an average player that's loved.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what my
So yeah, I would put Buch in the torn.
Okay.
Great
So
down.
great player, fans are divided. Pavel Buchnevich, great player, hated by fans. Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah.
I think that's starting to switch. By the way, I think you're starting to see that at a minimum.
I think so.
Trend more toward fans are divided.
I don't know when it officially ends, though.
I think a big playoff series.
Yeah, probably,
I agree.
because I think people still are out on Kyrou.
If they get to the playoffs and he has a big series, I think you will see fans either divided or loved.
And you remember
quickly.
Vladdy's early time better than I do.
Yeah.
Is that what happened to Vladdy? Because I always remember Vladdy having the same
people
kind
didn't
of hate for
start.
defense.
People didn't start disliking Vladdy until like those 2 years leading up to the Stanley Cup final, because that's when they had the opportunity to win and they weren't winning. But in the early years, he was more like loved by people because of the 40 goals.
Average player loved by fans. I've got a clear cut, no doubt about it. I think this is the nominee here. Jake Neighbors.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else other than Braden
I would
Shen.
put
You could
Braden
go with,
Shen.
But
Cup
if you're
champion.
going by the heart of what this is, like truly average, I think Shen this year has been above average.
Yeah,
and I think for his career here in St. Louis, he's been legitimately good. I think Jake Neighbors is closer to the average.
I would put Shen there, and I would put Neighbors in the one that people are torn with.
Really?
Mostly because they love the way that he plays, but I wonder if people are still like, yeah, but we want more offense.
I hope not, because this is who he is. And I hope that that's okay to fans. I think sometimes we do this, and we do it certainly with the Cardinals prospects, where it's like, hey, this guy has to be excellent or it's a failure. Dude, it's okay to just be a good player.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing like a middle six forward to get that in the back half of the first round of the draft. That's a good outcome for NHL teams. So I hope fans aren't divided on him. I suppose it's possible.
Yeah.
But I hope not. All right. Average player fans are divided. If it's not
Neighbors.
Neighbors.
Man.
I don't know if they really
Joel
have
Hofer?
one.
Are fans divided on Hofer?
I don't know.
I don't think they would be, but I mean, I guess I could see it.
Could it be Bolduc?
I feel like he's so young that you can't really be divided on it.
I don't know. I don't know if they've got this guy.
Yeah,
Shooter or Tucker? I feel like that's probably the closest thing that you've got.
Yeah, but I don't know if
maybe.
they're divided on
And
those guys.
again, I think it's just so low because I would put Falk here, but I think Falk's the next conversation.
I agree.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so that one's tough. The what was supposed to be a free square, not an easy one for the Blues. Average player hated by fans, Justin Falk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot that goes into that. It's the
do too.
history of him getting traded here, and that being at least part of the reason why they ended up not re-signing Pietrangelo. I don't think it was actually the reason. I think they had decided they weren't signing Petro, and that's why they traded for Justin Falk, but neither here nor there. Bad player loved by fans.
Sonny.
That's
think
who
that's
I
right.
first thought of, too.
Bad player fans divided on the Blues.
Man.
Is there a fans divided conversation for any of the bad players on the Blues
I
right
don't
now?
think so,
I don't think
because
so.
I think you're either loved or you're disliked.
Bad player organization divided is Alex Texier.
Poor guy. Poor guy. They're just trying to still figure out who he is.
Bad player hated by fans.
I don't think this has one either. I think last year you could have said Kevin Hayes.
Yeah.
You know,
Hated by it might be Texier.
I
don't know that he's
you can
truly
hate him
hated.
because you don't know.
Oh, you know what? It's Letty.
Could the divided?
Yeah, that's probably true.
It's probably Letty.
That's
That's
good.
probably
I was
true.
gonna say, could the bad player, but I don't even know if that feels right. In divided would be that Toropchenko hadn't had
Maybe.
a great year.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
You know,
looking for a little bit
Fourth
more
liner.
offense.
You think that we saw last year he had more offense.
And see, I thought Nathan Walker here too with the middling one, but I
Yeah.
think people love Nathan Walker for how he plays, which is the same with Toropchenko.
all right. So now that we've done that and got that out of the way, that was a lot of fun. I really
this will
enjoyed
be
it,
awkward.
All right, time for the Battle Hawks.
I think we
Nim
go
City
next.
SC.
Oh,
Yeah, there we go. All right.
No,
How does this recent stretch where the Blues have played genuinely good hockey, not just overall, but against legit contenders, Alex, how does it influence what you think Doug Armstrong decides to do at the deadline?
To me, selling's off the table. And I say that, and they might still in their mind think like, hey, we're going to listen to everything. You've put yourself in this equation. Your team has played consistently. And I frankly view this now at the trade deadline of not going out and buying something as a rental so it's here for a playoff push and then gone. You're going to get something that's going to be here beyond this year. My Ferrario 5 last week, I had Jared McCann on this. That's a 28-year-old who's going to be here for the next 2 years that fits into your timeline. And we were talking about this on the Last Minute Blues podcast earlier today. I actually wonder now if things have shifted to where you look at this and you say, do we put our first-round draft pick at this year's draft up for grabs at the deadline? Not so much of going out to get a rental, but going out and finding something that could be here beyond this year. Because what does that first-round pick do for you right now? If you're either going in two different directions. You're missing the playoffs, and if you're missing the playoffs, you're probably going to be a 15th or 16th overall pick because you're going to be a couple of points out, unless you just have a disastrous fall-off. Or you're going to be in the playoffs, and it's going to be somewhere between 18 and 20. What does that pick do for you right now? So if I'm the Blues, I'm not listening on Braden Shen. I'm not listening on Jordan Binnington. I'm really not listening on Colton Parayko unless you're giving me something that falls into the we're great next year because of this trade. Otherwise, I think I might approach this and say, where are we weakest at? No disrespect. I love Sonny, but I think it's the third line.
Totally agree.
And what do I have to give? I don't have a second, third, or fourth round draft pick. And frankly, if you've seen some of the trades that have taken place over these last couple of days, teams don't value second, third, or fourth round picks in this year's draft. Teams value next year's draft because this one's basically not deep beyond the first round. So why? I know you don't have anything until the fifth round, but what does a first round pick that's 16th overall do for you if I can trade that asset and go get something that's on my third line permanently for the next 3 years?
I'm totally in agreement with you. I couldn't be more in agreement, honestly.
And you can top 10 protect that pick also in case things fall apart.
Yeah, that's what I do. I think that if I'm in Doug Armstrong's shoes right now, selling to me is off the table, unless it's just so overwhelming that I have to do it. Like, if the Maple Leafs do decide to get absolutely crazy, they're like, you know what? We're doing Matthew Nyes, and we're giving you a first-round pick for Braden Shin, retain half the salary. I got to at least consider that, dude.
I mean, that's a hockey trade, though. That's not a trade deadline trade.
It is a hockey trade. You're probably not making the playoffs if you do that, because now I have no depth whatsoever.
Yeah, you have a hole at center. Booch back to center.
So I'm probably maybe. I mean, honestly,
no.
What you're probably doing?
I changed my mind.
That would be we've got to call up Dvorsky. Sonny might be your second line center the rest of the year. So. Yeah, exactly.
We just put him in the bad player category.
In this scenario, you're almost certainly
love you, Sonny,
not competing for the playoffs anymore. That's the only way that I think you do it, though. I'm not trading Bennington. I'm certainly not trading Parayko. I think it's crazy that was even ever out there. But
somebody just texted and said, what third liner is worth a top 15 pick, though? I'm not looking at it as a third liner. I'm going to a team that has him as a second liner, and he maybe is my second liner, but for now, you're my third liner. Like Jared McCann scored 40 goals 2 years ago as a winger. That guy would be worth a 16th overall pick. In JR's trade piece where scouts and execs kind of evaluated fans' trade proposals, they got shot down by both of them, but if Seattle would trade Matty Beniers for a first-round pick and a prospect, why wouldn't you do? That's a 23-year-old centerman who's top 6 potential for you. So I don't know what's out there. And frankly, if you're going off of what the trade board is, I don't know if just a first-round pick gets it done. There might need to be more a part of it. But I've just had this mindset over these last couple of games for how they've played. I'm not looking at this as saying, let's see what we could get for a Braden Shen. Unless it's a hockey trade coming my direction, man, that first-round pick means nothing to me. It could get me something that makes me a true, clear-cut playoff team, and then whatever happens in the playoffs happens.
Blues off for the next, 2
days?
2 days. Back in action coming up on Wednesday against the Kings. They basically exclusively play Los Angeles over the next
COVID all
week
over
or so.
again.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll certainly follow along to see if there's any news throughout the week here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we start our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with a player that might not even make the won't make the opening day roster. We'll tell you who that is coming up here in just a little bit. But next, there are real questions that have started to emerge from Mizzou basketball. I don't enjoy talking about them, but we've got to do it. Coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. All right, we got to talk about the Missouri basketball team, guys, because it didn't go well for them over the weekend. Actually, that's unfair. It did go well for them for a little while. And then suddenly, in the second half, everything imploded. And the first half I didn't feel great about, to be honest with you, Alex. I don't know how much of this game you guys were able to watch, but they had a really big run, but otherwise I didn't feel like they played a great first half in that one at Vanderbilt. And Vandy had a kid that just had the game of his life. Chris Mannion was out there just, I don't know that he's ever played a game better or will ever play a better game for the rest of his existence. But he was great, and he was everywhere on the court, just absolutely dominating.
Shots fired at that kid.
He's a fine player, but he was dominating the game for, like, long stretches of time.
Mizzou should have stopped him.
It would have been better. Yeah, that would have helped him win the game.
Does he know how to play defense? Or?
Trent Pierce played one of the worst games I've ever seen him play in a Mizzou uniform. And in the second half of that game, it was honestly a problem for Dennis Gates that he still had him in there. He was clearly the guy that everybody on Vanderbilt was attacking defensively, and on the three that ultimately, I believe, lost in the game. It didn't effectively lose in the game because it tied it going to overtime, but the three that sent it to overtime and eventually Mizzou loses was Trent Pierce's guy. He just fell asleep defensively. And offensively, he was horrible. The guy can't get out of his own mind at the free throw line right now. It's really frustrating to watch. Alex, the reason why I bring this up is because when I look at the Missouri Tigers and I see what happened on Saturday for them, I thought there were real weaknesses that have emerged over the last couple of weeks that if and when they lose in the NCAA tournament, I think it will be because of what we saw over the weekend. One of those weaknesses is at times they get a little careless with the basketball. Another one, there are times where if the ball isn't going down for Caleb Grill or Jacob Cruz, everybody gets a little antsy, and suddenly they're starting to take these threes that just like, they're just forcing it. Jacob Cruz had a terrible shot down the stretch of that game. It was a YOLO ball, basically, that he put up, and everybody watching knew this is not the shot you want in this spot, and yet he still decided to take it. And in those moments, it just kind of feels like people get antsy. Anthony Robinson played great over the weekend, but they get a little antsy in those stretches. And then the other thing is, like, there are games where just inside, they do not have the defensive presence that you'd like to see, especially when Josh Gray is in foul trouble, which he was over the weekend. We saw this against Arkansas when he didn't play. They had no answers for the size that Arkansas had inside. On Saturday against Vandy, they were going to the rim at will, got Josh Gray into foul trouble, and then when he was out of the game, he finished with just 15 minutes played overall. When he was not in the game, Vandy had a heyday at the rim. So those are a few of the things that I think have started to really creep into their game. They still scored 93 points. They didn't play a horrible basketball game, but when you're on the road at Vandy, who is a pretty good team this year, a legit tournament team, those kinds of things will lose the game for you. And then I just thought it was a bad day overall for Dennis Gates. He has not had very many of those this year. This was one of them. Should have called a timeout down the stretch to get your offense going. And I believe you got to foul up three in that spot. He decided not to do it, and it's worth noting, Mark Mitchell came out after the game and said we were supposed to foul up by three. We didn't get the job done there, so maybe it's not on Dennis, maybe it's on the players, whatever. Ultimately, if you're not getting the foul that you want, you got to call a timeout in that spot. You got to find a way to make it happen. And they didn't do that. What did you make of the game over the weekend for Mizzou, Alex?
Yeah, so I didn't get to see it. I just kind of went back and saw highlights because I was at a concert on Saturday. But the main thing for me, at least watching some of the highlights and then just looking at the final numbers in that game, when Mizzou is, in my opinion, dominant, what we've seen, man, they are a threat to deal with underneath the basket, specifically on the rebounds. And they got out-rebounded by 11. And that typically doesn't happen with this team. Now, some of this is because Gray was in foul trouble, like you mentioned, so you lose your big man. But when you start forcing things, if you're not strategic in terms of being able to recover, whether it's the offensive rebounds or, frankly, ending the push from the opposition on the defensive side of the ball, that's where this team can be threatened. Because, like, you look at the final numbers, like, yeah, you were right. Trent Pierce, not a good game at all for 25 minutes played. But Caleb Grill, a good game. Mark Mitchell, a good game. Tamar Bates, a good game when he wasn't in foul trouble. They had some of the pieces, but then it's like just the overall defensively has always kind of been the, like, okay, can you get the stop? And at times they've been really good at it, and some of that has just been their prowess underneath the basket, and I didn't think they had that with Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think it came down, for me, it was turnovers are the one thing that you mentioned that at times they get a little sloppy with the basketball, and that's one thing that can really change momentum. But overall, like, I'm not that worried about the Tigers going into the NCAA tournament. I know they've dropped, 2 of their last 3. They are so balanced offensively, and the fact that they don't have to rely on one guy, they can turn to others, does make me feel better about their chances in the tournament. I think these are just a couple of those one-offs, right? I mean, you mentioned a game against Arkansas. I don't remember what day it was on the show that we talked about it, but you said
last week,
you said, hey, last weekend just proved to be one of those games that got away from you. I think this is what this was. I'm not too concerned. Now, they will have a problem on the interior. That is one thing that will be worth monitoring, but for the most part, if you just can work with him of, hey, let's make sure we're not in foul trouble. Or, hey, as teammates, let's not put him in bad spots. Let's make sure we don't get beat off the dribble. I think they're going to be fine. I don't have, my alarm bells for the Tigers are not going off. I think they're going to be totally fine by the time we get to March.
They have scored at least 80 points in 9 of the last 10 games. So the offense is really not much of a concern. It's just about, can you get the stops that are necessary? And they play at this frenetic pace, so it's going to lead to a lot more offense potentially being scored in conference play. I mean, they're really getting up and down the court, especially when they go up against teams that are willing to run with them a little bit. They've got to win this game at Oklahoma later on in the week. They play at Oklahoma on Wednesday. That is a legit tournament team as well. They're not as good as Vandy, but they are a team that can get you if you don't play well. And then their final game of the regular season is at home against Kentucky. If you want to have a 4 seed, I think that game might literally be basically like a play-in game for the 4 seed, because Kentucky and Mizzou are kind of teetering on which one of these teams is going to be that 4 seed right now. I think as of today, Mizzou would probably be a 5 because they lost that game against Vandy on the road over the weekend. Kentucky ended up getting blown out by Auburn. They've got to win on Tuesday against LSU, and then that game ultimately decided between Mizzou and Kentucky. If you win that one, win that first game in the SEC tournament, because it doesn't look like Mizzou's going to be able to get that double bye now, that might be enough to be able to get you the 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And the reason why I believe that matters is twofold. One, the 12 seeds are just so much better than the 13s. You see it every year. It's why that 5-12 seed is always a game that people circle as a potential upset. 2, it's about what it means for you later on in the tournament and the path that you could potentially take in the NCAA tournament. All right, last thing that I wanted to get to here, Alex. We got to talk about T-Bone's Illini.
Yeah.
Because they were excellent.
Here we go.
Yesterday. I mean, excellent.
At least we won.
T-Bone was able to talk. T-Bone was higher on Mizzou than I am, and I'm a Mizzou fan. I feel like today I might be a little higher on Illinois than T-Bone is.
What is wrong with you
He's the
two?
Illini fan. So, my theory on Illinois, T-Bone, and you could totally reject it, and that's fine. I don't blame you for it. My theory on them is we have underestimated, much like with Booch and his injury issues, we have underestimated just how much that sickness that was ravaged the entire team for a couple of weeks. We have underestimated how much that played into their struggles. Because really, when you look at it, it's effectively like a 2 to 3 week stretch where they just didn't look like themselves. Especially that 2 week stretch or that week stretch where they played Michigan State, Wisconsin, and then Duke. Over the weekend, you go up against Michigan, and you don't just beat them, you beat the hell out of them on the road by 20 points, and Michigan's really good. And a lot of that was because you finally started hitting your threes. It's possible they didn't have their legs because they were sick, and they got beaten down, travel got to them, all of these different things, are playing against some really good opponents. My theory, maybe this is just wishful thinking, is that they're going to start looking much better down the stretch. They'll beat Purdue at home, and then they'll go into the Big Ten tournament and look like the team that they were, and you're going to start buying into them once again as we go into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
is that something that you are ready to admit?
No, because I think their three-point shooting woes have been a problem all season long, and though they hit their shots in this game, I don't think they're going to do that consistently enough. And because of at this point we've learned they're unwilling to try their offense any other way, they're going to go for these three-point shots again. I mean, you just mentioned their game against Purdue. I told Jackson, a little peek behind the curtain here, when we were kind of doing the little crossover where he's leaving and I'm coming in, we were talking, and I said, I bet you they get killed by like 15 to 20 against Purdue because they're going to go back to this three-point shot.
If they win, though, what will be your reaction to that?
I would be more open-minded to the idea of, okay, maybe there was something to it. But I don't expect them to win. Like, I expect them to fall back in love with the three-point shot and go, hey, did you see what we did in Michigan? And they're going to be building a brick house when they go up against Purdue because they're throwing up misses.
Even against Michigan, it's not as if they took fewer threes. They took more of them.
Yeah.
Their response to the three-point problem was, well, we're going to shoot
Let's
more and
keep
we're going to
shooting.
make more. They went 14 for 37, so they had a good percentage, and they shot more than half of their attempts from the field from beyond the arc. This just happened to be a game where they made them. Instead of missing a bunch of them, they made them. If that is something that can continue for them, I don't know how sustainable it is, but if it is, they're going to look good. They're going to look really good in the NCAA tournament because they do everything else pretty well. They're just a horrible shooting team more often than not.
Yeah, they do it all the time.
They finally went down over the weekend, and that's how you end up winning by 20 on the road at Michigan.
But they never
Really
learned their
impressive.
lesson. They're just like, we'll get it back.
62 second half points, man. That was a 1-point game at halftime, and then they just pummeled them in the second half. Really impressive.
Maybe
win for
Michigan got the flu.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm
shaking their
Brandon
hands?
Kiley. In 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next, we begin actually our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season. Full disclosure, this is going to be a little different than it is most years. We'll explain it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues fell to the Dallas Stars 6-3. They'll be back in action on Wednesday as they head out west for a West Coast swing where they take on the LA Kings. Well, pregame coverage starting at 8:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Carter. Cardinals off today in spring training, but they'll be back in action tomorrow with a split squad doubleheaders. They've at Washington tomorrow, and they'll also be hosting the New York Mets. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We begin our 20 most important Cardinals list for the 2025 season. Let's go! Yeah! With J.J. Wetherholt, a gentleman that is unlikely to be on the opening day roster and will probably not play a game for the Cardinals in 2025.
Yeah, go Cards!
And if ever there was an indication on how much different this list is going to be in 2025 than it has been in the past, this is it, man. We begin with a guy that is unlikely to suit up for a single game this season in a big league uniform. But Alex, that's not necessarily what this season is all about. Now, full disclosure, Alex was the only one that had J.J. Wetherholt on his top 20 list. But he had him so high at number 17 overall that he's the one that ended up getting this spot on our show list. If you're new to the show, you haven't heard us before, we'll be counting down our 20 most important players list up until opening day. Now, the way this typically works is if this player reaches his ceiling, what does it mean for the Cardinals in 2025 or in previous seasons? This year, I had to do it a little differently. I don't know how you guys went about your list, but for me, mine was about what does it mean for 2025, but I actually took a broader look at what does this mean beyond the upcoming season, because 2025 for the Cardinals is really about setting the foundation for a winning window beyond this upcoming year. So, Alex, we begin with your guy, J.J. Wetherholt. You were the one that had him on your list. Why did you have him so high on your 20 most important Cardinals list for the 2025 season?
Because I think J.J. Wetherholt's season is going to be so impactful for the Cardinals because of what next year's going to be like. I think the growth through the minor leagues for him this year is going to be us talking about him being a potential everyday player for them next season. I'm in agreement. I don't think he makes this roster this season, and we see him as a Cardinal. Maybe there's a chance. I think we see him in Memphis by the end of this season, and that's a pretty massive rise for a 22-year-old to go from A-ball to AAA, and then I think whatever he does in AAA sets the Cardinals up for saying, like, hey, this dude might be a impactful player for us starting next season. And again, I did the same mindset as you. I'm not looking at 2025 of how they get to the playoffs, because otherwise this guy wouldn't have been on my list. I'm looking at what does 2025 propel this team to with 2026. And because he's so high up, if he has the season that they're expecting him to have in the minors, this makes guys expendable next year via trade, because Wetherholt's a potential infielder for you next season.
The only Cardinals that have been this high on the prospect rankings lists in recent seasons are Dylan Carlson, I know, and Jordan Walker, I know. So that is the cautionary tale here. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's just going to immediately be a great player at the major league level. But those guys took a while to get this high onto their list. They had to have success in the minors first. Wetherholt is about, okay, as a prospect going into the draft, he was already highly rated. He showed it a little bit over the course of the final stretch of the season last year down in what was a rookie ball or whatever, the extended spring training thing. And then now you're seeing it in the actual spring training. He looks the part. He looks like a player that's going to be ready sooner rather than later. Baseball America has him at number 25 on their top 100 prospects. MLB.com has him at number 23, and Baseball Prospectus actually has him at number 13 already before playing at really any kind of high-level ball for the Cardinals. T-Bone, to me, J.J. Wetherholt's presence, the reason why I think he's so important going into this season is because he's the one that actually puts pressure on guys like Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman. Like, you need to find out what you have with those players, Alec Burleson as well, because this is a left-handed bat that can play second or third base for you long-term. He's going to fill into one of those spots probably as soon as next season. So if you don't get a good year out of Nolan Gorman, if it just last year was who he is, baseball has figured it out, He has too much of a hole in his swing, and he's just always going to be a high strikeout rate, power when he makes contacts type of a player. Well, he's either going to be a bench bat for you for the foreseeable future, or he's going to be on another roster because of J.J. Wetherholt, because of Brendan Donovan, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the guy that's under the most pressure with Wetherholt's emergence is Nolan Gorman, because to me that's the one for one where you put him is at second base, and then you can figure out what you want to do with Donovan because he's a utility guy. But I think that's the spot for me. Now, I didn't have him on my list, and I think part of the thought process for me was I did my list a little different from you two. Mine was not just looking at, okay, what is beneficial for the next window, but also balancing how do you win in 2025, because I think that's the tightrope that the Cardinals are quietly talking about at spring training with some of their stuff, and that's where, to me, it wasn't so much about J.J. Wetherholt, though you do want a good developmental year for him because he does help in the future. To me, it's more important to get answers about these pieces that are on the roster, whether it be a Gorman, a Donovan, a Jordan Walker, a Nootbaar, guys like that. But I can see how he can sneak into the top 20 in a list because there is a legitimate chance that he is a guy that is playing at AAA. And I'm not going to be putting it at a high percentage, but I do think there's a small chance you see him potentially in September of this year.
I hope that's not the case. Because if you do see him in September, it probably means that you got bad returns on at least one of those players that I just mentioned, and probably multiple. It probably requires some kind of an injury to one of your left-handed bats, and then one of the other guys not living up to expectations this season. Like if Nootbaar is hurt and Gorman is not living up to expectations, that's probably the route. Because then you have Donovan in left field. Maybe you made a trade at some point as well, and you end up with J.J. Wetherholt at second base. It also means that he probably had a great season, so that is the positive that comes out of this. But I'm really excited about him. Everybody that has seen him live in spring training or on the backfields leading into spring training says, hey, the hype is legit. This guy's going to be a really good player, but the Cardinals got to take it slow with him. Do not rush him to the major leagues. There is no urgency this year to get him up and to have him be the savior of the franchise. I think if you're looking at this, like best case scenario for the Cardinals, J.J. Wetherholt is probably your future two-hole hitter for this team. Left-handed bat, based on the way that they see their lineup, my guess is they see it as Wynn is your leadoff hitter, J.J. Wetherholt bats second for you. You probably have Jordan Walker batting third, Contreras batting fourth, and then you fill it out from there, like Herrera batting fifth, and you see Gorman sixth.
Top free agent batting third, right? Kyle Tucker, Vlad Guerrero Jr.
In a best-case scenario, though, Jordan Walker just becomes that top-hitting free agent. He hits 270 this year with 30 home runs, and we're all thrilled that they didn't give up on him as early as they potentially could have. Like, that's, again, pie in the sky maybe, but that's best-case scenario for them. J.J. Wetherholt really opens up the look of that lineup because he does have the ability to both hit for power and average. I was listening to the Fast Lane the other day talking about the Cardinals and like, do you want an identity, right? Do you want to be great at one thing, or do you want to be like the master of all, or the jack of all trades, master of none? The Cardinals right now have a lot of guys that are kind of one or the other. They've got guys that are on base but don't have a ton of power, or they've got guys that hit for average but don't have the power or the on-base percentage. They've got a lot of like individual profile types of hitters. Wetherholt is the one guy really on the roster right now that profiles to have all of it. He can hit for average and on base and power. I think he's probably the. Tell me if you guys agree with this. Do you think J.J. Wetherholt is the player currently in the organization most likely to hit 300, 400, and 500 over the course of a season?
Yes.
Like that kind of a slash line. I think the last Cardinal to do that, if I'm not mistaken, was Tommy Pham.
Yeah, I do. Because Gorman's obviously not it.
Yeah, I don't think Walker.
I don't think Walker's, with the on base. Yeah, I think 300, 400, 500 is probably J.J. Wetherholt.
I think so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's really high praise. I'm not telling you that that's what you should expect out of him. But if there is anybody in the organization right now capable of it, I think it's probably either him or Ivan Herrera. And that's why I'm so high on Ivan Herrera. We'll probably get to him at some point.
No, he wasn't on my list.
Makes sense.
He wasn't on my list.
Oh, is that kind of like Yachty?
Yeah, I forgot he was on the team.
I think people are going to be surprised by how high Ivan Herrera is on our list.
I've looked at the list. I can't remember where he's at.
I think people are going to be surprised by how high Ivan Herrera is.
I think people are going to be surprised by how high Michael Hellman is on my list. That utility infielder, baby.
For those that are curious, the other players that did not make our top 20 list that ended up being, potential options for us, like the honorary. I had Gordon Graceffo at 20. He did not make either of your lists. You, T-Bone, had Michael Ciani at 19. He did not make my list or Alex's list. I think that goes to your point on you're looking at it for 2025 more so maybe than the future, and we're looking at it more for the future projections than 2025. And Alex had J.J. Wetherholt at 17, and that's ultimately how we ended up with Wetherholt as our
I
final
figured
option.
we were going to have a lot of different players towards the bottom of our list and where they were because of how unsure we were evaluating this team and
I
what
was
the
surprised.
season.
It was only those three. That was the only difference. Everybody else was like, we had 19 players that were on all three of our lists, and then one at the back end that were separate from each other. I was surprised by that.
I think you and I were lockstep with each other in terms of a lot of the top 10.
And I don't know how you guys felt, because again, I was doing it kind of two different mindsets, but I leaned more in favor of the, hey, it's more important to get the long-term answers, but then I did put that little bit of that splash of winning in 2025. If you're going by those long-term answers, it's hard to find outside the top 10, right? Because there's really like 10 guys, and some of those 10 guys, the way I was thinking of it, aren't really guys that are, when I say their name, like I'll just throw one out here. I don't remember where he's at on the list, but Ryan Helsley, for example. When I bring up Ryan Helsley in these conversations, it's not about him being with the organization beyond this year. It's about what you get in a trade package if he's really good. And that's where it got really tough when you start looking at like 10 guys, 11 to 20 was like impossible to come up with.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll continue our countdown of the 20 most important players tomorrow with number 19 on our list, a guy that everybody in St. Louis loves and will certainly enjoy being this high on our list. Coming up next, it's the Junk Drawer here on BK and Ferrario. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer today with Alex and T-Bone on BK. We got a couple of different stories. T-Bone was down at a parade earlier this week. Alex went to, I don't even know what the name of the city is.
Moline, Illinois. Sorry, my headphones literally just broke in the middle of us coming back.
Moline.
There you go. It's right by Iowa.
What are they most known for?
The Quad Cities.
I
This
can't look at
sucks.
you.
I know. This sucks.
Did you break another pair of headphones?
I don't understand how this happens. I literally pick them up, open them, and just snap. Now, these were $5, so understandable.
How do you always break
Hold on.
headphones?
I mean, he just said they're $5.
John
Are we
Deere
shocked?
headquarters is located in
our
Moline,
hotel was right
Illinois.
next to the John Deere building.
The I-74 bridge is another one that they're really known for.
Don't know what that is, but
Bass Street Landing.
I don't know
and
what
the
that is.
Vibrant Arena.
That's where the
bar-
concert was.
All right, so what happened in Moline, Illinois?
So we went to see the concert. Rascal Flatts was a band my wife and I love. They were in Moline, Illinois, so we drove and we were there. And so they have the pre-shows that take place. And in between the pre-shows, as many know in concerts, they play music that gets people excited. And of course, alcohol does a lot with this one. So in the middle of the second act before Rascal Flatts came on, first song that plays is Don't Stop Believin' by Journey.
Great song.
There you go, crowd pleaser.
And that song came on, and I am now, a lot of this was alcohol induced, but there was 12,000 people in that arena, and I want to say about 75% of that arena were adult females. And I want to say about 50% of the 75% of adult females stood up on their seats holding 2 beers up and just swaying back and forth at the top of their lungs singing, "Don't stop believing." And I looked at my wife and I go, is this the most common white girl song out there?
That's up there.
And no, it's not up there. I have to believe that it is after watching that.
I've got your 50 most popular, or 25, excuse me, most popular karaoke songs of all time.
Okay. Don't Stop Believing. That is a good one for
That
it.
has to be top 5.
Number 2.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be top
Wow.
5. And number 1, can I guess what it is? Because this was, I looked at my wife in the same instance. I go, is this the most common white boy song? Because Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond.
That should be up
All
there.
the way down at number
8.
4.
Wow. Yeah.
Most common,
really
most
fell.
So
popular.
this is where it got really uncomfortable because, again, this was after Don't Stop Believin', where people were like 16 beers deep, which apparently I didn't realize that this is a thing. Do guys like walking around with 2 tall boys of beer so that they can drink 2 of them at the same time?
Yeah.
Well, it's just so you don't have to go back up there as well.
Okay, because
You
there
don't
was
have to stand in the
there were
line.
2 guys in front of me that had like 6 combined between both of them,
Yeah,
and I was
it's
like,
actually,
actually
you don't
probably
have to go
smart.
back.
Yeah.
That's
makes
what I do
sense.
at a
Okay, well they were
concert,
double
typically.
chugging them too, but
The tall boys,
Yeah.
the tall boys, get 3 of them, you're good to go for the concert.
So Sweet Caroline comes on, and the other 25% of the building that were dudes all standing up on their chairs, and there were 5 different guys that took their shirts off, took their belts off, were about to take their pants off because they were singing Sweet Caroline. So
that
now I
is a
know the
new-
2 most common white girl and white boy songs. It's Sweet Caroline and Don't Stop Believin'.
All right, so your top 10 most common, most popular karaoke songs of all time. Number 1, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. I'm a little surprised it's all the way up there.
There's
Number
no
2,
way that's that-
Don't
no.
Stop Believin' by Journey. This is by the very, very popular and definitely legitimate howtokaraoke.com. Number 3, Summer
Billie Jean's
Nights
not up there.
by the
Summer
Grease
Nights.
Cast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Number
I don't know if
4,
I know that one.
you'd know it. if
You've
you heard
seen
it.
Grease, haven't you?
No.
Okay.
You would be familiar with this one.
Summer lovin'.
Number 4, Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. Number 5, Dancing Queen.
Yeah, that should be number 1.
Number 6, I Want to Dance with Somebody.
I want to dance
that one's
with
not surprising.
somebody.
Number 7, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Oh, yeah,
Number
phenomenal.
8, Wannabe by the Spice Girls.
Yep.
You're a big Queen guy, right?
Love Queen. Yep,
I thought
love
Seems
Queen.
really good.
Number 9, Torn. Number 10,
What's Torn?
Hey
Yeah.
Jude by the
Oh,
Beatles.
what a
That's a good
terrible,
one. Oh.
what a terrible karaoke
Oh,
song.
no, that's a good song.
No way. I actually, I'm
I'm a big Hey Jude guy.
Yeah.
this is,
What was the 9th one?
yeah, what's,
I don't think I'm familiar with this.
Torn? I've never heard
by
of it.
this is probably one of
Who?
those that if we heard it, we'd immediately recognize
is it?
Torn by Natalie Imbruglia?
no
I
idea.
don't know, man.
This is going to be a hot take right now while both of you are looking this up. I have never been a Beatles fan. I do not like the Beatles.
So that's kind of been in vogue of like, hey, the
Yeah.
Beatles are overrated. I disagree with it entirely.
My wife
First of all,
loves
one of the
the
most
Beatles.
influential bands of all time. So just by that alone, that gets you up there. Also, the number of hits that they have is just ridiculous.
Someone brought up a great point. Garth Brooks is Friends in Low Places should be the number one song on this.
True.
Yeah.
Over Billie Jean. And look, I love me some Michael Jackson music, but Billie Jean is not number one on that list.
I found the song that we were
let's
talking
hear it.
about.
Make sure it's not on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it would be one of those that you immediately recognize.
This is one of those one-hit wonders.
Yeah. I recognize that one too when I started.
Terrible song.
Yeah, I would not use that for karaoke though.
Terrible song. Oh, God, the BK loves this song.
I think I heard this every day going to school for like a year in my mom's car.
Is Welcome to the Jungle, by the way, top 25?
There's no way that's a karaoke song.
The only reason I say that is because like there's a bar that's literally right across the street from me, and every Thursday night. Where,
At
that
some point,
bar?
we need to do like a BK and Ferrario and go
Alex
to the
and I are
bar
gonna
down the
do it.
street.
Yeah, no, we've already planned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not involved.
What?
Yeah.
We've talked
Come on,
about
man.
it.
You've
But
got an attitude
song,
problem.
I hear,
don't
there are a
understand.
couple songs that I hear from that bar that I'm going, this shouldn't be karaoke. Welcome to the Jungle is
Welcome
one
to
of
the
them.
Jungle.
Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. I've heard like the same guy goes there every Thursday and plays that song.
Yeah, I'd like to sing Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Ooh, ah! Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. That's like going to a karaoke and being like, my next song is Limp Bizkit. I'd like let's roll in next, please.
I hear a couple that I would expect.
Rolling.
I hear a couple that I would expect on Thursday nights, but then there are some where I'm like, man, there's no way you picked it, right?
Go-to? You got to do something with Queen, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's either
Don't Stop Me Now.
Don't Stop Me Now, because I love that one.
Song.
It's Billy Joel's
Piano Man?
No, not Piano Man. God, what am I
That's
thinking?
a good song.
I gotta look it up
tough
now.
for you to request.
Not Uptown Girl. God, what is it?
Uptown Funk?
No, Uptown
is a
Funk. I
different
don't
name.
know how to sing that one
That's
at
a
all.
good song, though.
I'll figure this one out.
Okay.
But there's a Billy Joel one that's as well.
I just go Sweet Caroline. I'm sorry.
I
know.
I
It's
actually
easy.
See, this is why you're not invited.
that song. I hate that song.
I'm sorry.
Only the good die young. Okay. That's the Billy Joel song.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I learned over the weekend at that concert
Would you
I
pull out a
hate
Disney
Sweet
song?
Caroline.
Because I've heard
I could crush Disney
When a
songs.
Lion
Your
Sleeps
wife, I think
Tonight
it's
from that bar.
That's not a Disney song, though, is it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because that's in The Lion King.
Well, yeah, but it was before the Lion. That was not a Lion King.
Oh.
Elton John's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" was a Lion King song.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I could crush some Disney music.
Yeah.
At a karaoke bar.
I mean,
I think I could, too.
The Point does the, or not the Point. Yeah, the Point does
the point. Moon and Tim do it.
It's great.
Yeah. Punk rock Disney. Yeah.
Can you feel the punk?
Yeah. Simple Plan sings.
Tickets on sale right now. 105.7 The Point.
Go check it out. Cha-ching. Simple Plan sings a
We're
good
planning
Disney
to go
song.
to that this year. We're going to take Luca to it.
Yeah. We're probably going to take Adelaide to it as well. We didn't do it last time because
Make sure
they're like
we
still.
go on
No,
different
yeah,
nights.
we're not going
I don't wanna
together.
be there
No,
with
bleep you. I'm not going with you. I've learned that Rascal Flatts sings the "Let It Go" song. Now I'm a big "Let It Go." If I wasn't already.
Really? Wait, did they cover that one?
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
What's the best cover you've seen live?
Oh, it's a band that I like. Also, it's a country band, Dan and Shay. They do a cover of Mr. Brightside. Crush it.
It's a good one.
I don't know.
We saw Lady Antebellum, and they did Hey Jude, interestingly enough.
I would hate that.
Really, really excellent.
I don't know if I can think of one off the top of my head. Zach Brown's done some pretty good covers, but I'm trying to think what his best one would have been.
21 Pilots did a few covers, and I'm not a huge fan of 21 Pilots music. Their show live is unbelievable.
I like a couple of their songs.
Devil Went Down to Georgia, Zach Brown band. That would be a good one.
That'd be pretty good.
They do a cover of that, and it's pretty good.
People that listen to the podcast know that Rascal
Bruno Mars
Flatts.
also amazing live.
Oh yeah, he's the one that.
I forgot how many hits Bruno Mars had.
Oh yeah, dude.
It's
He's the
insane.
one that
He's great.
He's on my bucket list to see a concert. I
We saw
got to
him
see
in
Justin
Memphis.
Timberlake. See, I want to go see him in Vegas when
That
he
would be
does his
great.
like residency there. Oh,
We went to Memphis, saw Bruno Mars live, and Dua Lipa was the opener for him at that point in time. That was before she got big nationally. Yeah, it was. We saw her, and we had never heard any of her music at the moment. This was like 6 years ago. This is like pre-COVID. And she goes out there, and we're like, man, this girl's really good. And she kept going. And it was like all of the songs that eventually became hits. It's like, no, she's like really good. This is unbelievable to see. And then she became one of the biggest artists in pop.
so just know, moral of this story today is if you sing Sweet Caroline out in public, I dislike you.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Zack Bolduc, we all seem to really like him, and he's been impressing lately. We'll talk about his progress next year on 101 ESPN.
The puck to the far point. Broberg with a shot on. Rebound, they score! Bolduc ties the game. Swatted the rebound in from the near post. That's 5 goals in the last 8 games for Zack Bolduc.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Zack Bolduc once again great over the weekend for the St. Louis Blues. Alex, in his last 8 NHL games, he has 5 goals, 12 shots on goal, 2 assists, 16 hits. He's a +6 in his past 8 games overall. The guy's playing like a legit top 6 forward right now, and the shot is starting to show up both on the power play, breakaway, whatever situation, 5-on-5. He's been really good for the Blues. This is a guy that when we came into the season, I just didn't know how he fit into their future. You looked at the wings and you thought to yourself, or at least I thought to myself, I think he can be a good player. I think he has the potential to be David Perron-esque in terms of his overall abilities as a player. He surprised us last year with his ability to be tough on the pucks. Like he just did stuff that I didn't think he was capable of. His game translated in a different way than I thought it was going to. But then you looked up and down the lineup, you're like, okay, that's great. But they've got Dylan Holloway. They've got Jordan Kyrou. They've got Jake Neighbors, Pavel Buchnevich. You're eventually going to have Jimmy Snuggerud. It gets a little crowded when you start to include Zack Bolduc into the conversation as well. At this point, Alex, with the way that he's produced this year, is Zack Bolduc officially a top 9, like one of the 6 wingers that's going to be on this team for the next 5 years? Are you building around Zack Bolduc?
Not yet. And I guess it's not like I'm actively looking to trade him, but I would at least entertain an offer if I'm getting something that raises the ceiling of my team for him. Like, I love Zack Bolduc, and I think Bolduc plays the style of hockey that Jim Montgomery wants his players to play. Like, we mentioned David Perron a lot. I also kind of get a little Jake DeBrusk with him as well. He's like big. He's not afraid to use his body. He's got a lethal shot. And what Montgomery said about Bolduc a couple of games ago was that, look, we always knew the offense was there. It's the details in the game to create more offense, and that's what you're seeing him take the next step on. This isn't Zack Bolduc floating in the offensive zone waiting for a puck to come to him. It's going in, forechecking, generating that offense so that you can create it yourself and then converting when you get the opportunity. Last night was a perfect example. Standing on the doorstep while Sundqvist gets the puck for him, that's the versatile player. But to me, I look at this Blues team right now and I say, okay, well, Holloway is a top 6 permanent fixture. Neighbors is a top 6 permanent fixture. Kyrou and Buchnevich are permanent top 6 fixtures. So right now, my top 6 is pretty much set. And I've also got Snuggerud to put into this and Zack Bolduc to put into this. But Bolduc is an awesome third-line winger to have. Like, this is a guy that can score 20 goals in the NHL. You want to put him in that spot. But is there something that takes you to the next level because of a Zack Bolduc? That's the question I would have. A perfect example in JR's piece on The Athletic where he had fans submit trade proposals and execs were saying yes or no if it could work. I think one of them, they had Zack Bolduc in the trade proposal to acquire Trevor Moore and Brant Clark from the LA Kings, or Simone Nemec and Dawson Mercer from the New Jersey Devils. That makes my team better right now, which is what you're always trying to pursue. But right now, Zack Bolduc, to me, he's a perfect top 9 winger to have on this team if you want to have success.
So I think sometimes because we're in the heart of this thing, it's hard to remember how young Zack Bolduc is.
Yeah.
This guy is 21 years old, man. He's now 22. He just turned 22 last week.
And where he scored 2 goals.
He is producing at a 15-goal pace now for this season. He's on pace to be like almost a +20 on the season, so the plus-minus is there. And that doesn't always mean that you're a good defensive player, but for this team, given the way that they've played this year and given the way that he's played, I think he has been mostly at least responsible defensively, even if there are lapses at times. I think he's a really good player. I'm still with you, Alex. I think he is a guy that, are you building around him? Not necessarily, but I'm also not looking to trade him. I'm open to the idea that this is a legit top 6 winger, and this is the positive about this. I think he's a legit top 6 winger that plays on your third line. Like, you have too many, in a good way, top 6 wingers right now. And I think you're still missing the elite guy. Maybe that becomes Snuggerud. Maybe it's a free agent. Maybe it's a trade. I don't know. But when you win cups, when you compete for something more meaningful, you have top pair defensemen that are playing on the second pair. You have top line forwards that are playing on the second line, top 6 forwards that are playing on the third line. That's how you have to start building this thing out with the depth of your lineup. And Bolduc is one of the first players to emerge in that regard.
Yeah.
I think Broberg is that right now for you, second pair defensively. You have a top pair defenseman that's playing on your second pair. Bolduc is the first guy on that third line that's a legit top 6 forward. Because think about the other players that are playing with him right now, and I think this also makes it even that much more impressive the way that he's producing. He's with Oscar Sundqvist, who's, at this point in his career, underqualified as a third-line center.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Joseph is in and out of the lineup regularly. Alex Texier in and out of the lineup with regularity. They don't have any kind of line combination chemistry, and they don't really have guys that are going to get the most out of Bolduc from that line right now.
Yep.
And he's still producing. I find that to be really impressive. So unless something is out there where it's an obvious upgrade from him, I do think he's somebody that I'm probably building around for the long haul.
I look at how this top 9 is going to be structured moving forward if you're the Blues. And you were doing this in the office a little bit ago, and the Athletics going to have the checklist for the Western Conference probably tomorrow. Yeah, hit me with it. Yeah.
All right, so they have a checklist, and right now they've only done the Eastern Conference. The Athletic does this around this time of the year every year, especially right when we get to the trade deadline. And it may sound simplistic, but I think it's a good way to kind of check stuff off of like, okay, where are we at as an organization? And it is the Stanley Cup contender checklist. Do you have the criteria that is typically required to be a cup contender? And what they need is you need an elite center, winger, defenseman, and goalie. Those are obvious. The Blues right now, to me, have 3 of those 4. They have the elite center in Thomas. They have the elite defenseman in Parayko. And I know Benner is not that in the regular season, but we don't have to have this conversation again. He's elite goalie when it matters. I'll put him in that category. You don't have the elite winger right now. And I'm not sure you have anybody that necessarily profiles that way. I'm keeping the lights on for Dylan Holloway. I might be the only one.
I am too. No, Holloway screams 30-goal scorer.
He is, to me, what we talked about earlier today with J.J. Wetherholt for the Cardinals. Wetherholt's the guy that has the ability to just have that all-around game. Holloway's the one winger, to me, that has that ability on the Blues.
Right.
He can do everything. He's an unbelievable skater. He gets out on the forecheck. Great shot. He's got all of the qualities that are necessary to become that top-line winger. It's just about can he get there or not. Okay. Beyond the elite players, you also need a top-line center after Thomas. So you need the elite center and a top-line center. You're hoping Dvorsky becomes that. Right now, though, you don't have anybody in place that is that. You could argue Shin. I don't think he's that necessarily. What do you think on that, Alex?
No, I don't think he is. I think that's why I've been so adamant about going out and finding somebody for the now in a trade at the deadline, like a Jared McCann, who can be a second or third line centerman for you or a winger. But in 2 years or next year, if you feel like Dvorsky's there, then Dvorsky takes that spot. But I think ideally you need a second line center. The hope, though, is Dvorsky's that for you.
Top line winger beyond just what you had with Thomas. Top line winger Kyrou, top line winger Holloway. Those are my two.
And I'd put, if this is the Booch you're getting it, I'd put Booch in that conversation.
And I've got him
also
in that top 6 forward category. So you could have those 3, put them in whichever one you want. Those are the 3 wingers. Top pair defensively, you've got Broberg beyond the Parayko thing.
Yeah.
Top 6 forward beyond Booch, Kyrou, Holloway. You've got opportunities there with one of Neighbors, Bolduc, or Snuggerud.
Yep.
We'll see which one ends up becoming that, but all of them at least are capable of it. Top pair defenseman that is playing elsewhere, Cam Fowler is that guy as well. I've already got Parayko down. I've got Broberg down. Now I've got Fowler down. You're missing another top pair defenseman.
Yep.
You have Falk that is playing there right now. I don't think he's playing to that caliber, but that's what you're missing. So you're missing right now an elite winger, top line center that isn't on the top line, and then a top pair defenseman beyond Fowler and Parayko.
And I think they would tell you we've got one of those internally right now with Dvorsky. The second one, they're probably hoping it's Snuggerud, but that's what I wrote down. Like a top 9, ideally for the future. Thomas and Buchnevich with a question mark. Holloway, Dvorsky, Kyrou, question mark with Shannon, another question mark. So those 3 question marks implement Neighbors, Snuggerud, Bolduc. But you've got 2 third-line wingers and 1 top-line winger. I don't know if all 3 of those guys can be top-line wingers. Maybe one can be, and Snuggerud. Neighbors is playing well right there for them, but they're going to be missing a difference maker. And that's why I love Bolduc. I think he's great. You might need to dangle one of those 3 guys to get that difference maker in the top line, and that's just where the Blues are going to be at. And again, if you look at those proposals on JR's piece, there were 2 proposals with the Kings and the Devils that offered up a top 4, another top pair defenseman that fits into that Justin Falk spot.
I've made the comparison a million different times, Alex, and it's worth noting these guys are different ages when they did this. Perron was 19, Bolduc right now 21 for the most part this season. David Perron is projected this year to finish with 69 games played, 13 goals, 29 points, and a plus 19 on the ice. That's his current projection based on what he's done so far through his first 52 games. In 2007, David Perron played in 62 games, had 13 goals, 27 points, and was a plus 16 on the ice. It's damn near identical to what we have seen so far from Zack Bolduc. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Alex, you were around more for that than I was. My understanding of where David Perron was at that point in his career is that he wasn't necessarily playing stylistically the way that Bolduc has.
Yeah.
Early in Perron's career, he was not the same player that he ultimately became maturity-wise with being difficult on pucks. Like, it was just a different version of Perron, even if the results were similar to what we're seeing right now from Zack Bolduc. David Perron 2 years later was a 20-goal scorer with 50 points basically for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, Bolduc, in my opinion, is further advanced than where Perron was in the early portion of his career, but also remember where the Blues are at when he joined the Blues. They were a rebuilding team. The reason Perron was traded away in that 2012-2013 season was you already had 1 year of Ken Hitchcock in the books. Hitch played a certain style, and Perron wasn't to that. Jim Montgomery doesn't play the same strict style as Hitch. He's allowing the players to be more open, but you have to be defensively responsible. And it's pretty evident that Bolduc already is, considering where I think he leads the team in plus-minus this season. So
it's been impressive.
He's playing the style that they need him to. It's just, is he the guy that takes the team to the next level? That's the question that they're going to be asking.
All right, a couple things pass along news-wise before we get into NFL quick hitters on the other side. At 1:30, we'll play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? Guy that we're very excited about is Dylan Holloway. He is our contestant today in Can You Beat the Blues? Text in right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you want to go up today against Dylan Holloway in Can You Beat the Blues, just text in. I can beat the Blues. We'll take, is it 3 or 4 contestants today? We got 3 contestants today going up against Dylan Holloway. We'll get into that at 1:30. Text in now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line if you'd like to go up against him. News to pass along. Jimmy Johnson has officially announced his retirement from Fox Sports after 31 years of NFL coverage. So congratulations to Jimmy Johnson on his official retirement from Fox Sports. The other news to pass along, this one more noteworthy locally, free agent pitcher Jose Quintana and the Milwaukee Brewers are in agreement on a 1-year contract, according to multiple reports. That's a really good move this late in the offseason for the Milwaukee Brewers. It felt all along like they were missing a guy in their rotation. Jose Quintana is a perfect signing for the Brewers. Makes all the sense in the world.
Good news is Cardinals got Steven Matz.
Jose Quintana is just going to play for every team in the Midwest.
He's the Ryan Suter of the Midwest.
I think the only one he hadn't paid for is Cincinnati, right?
And the Royals. You got to go over to the Royals at some point, and I'm sure they'll probably trade for him like next year.
Or this year if Milwaukee stinks.
True. Reds too.
There you go.
Not in division. That won't happen.
Don't worry about it. Just move on. Don't worry about it. It's fine. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, NFL Quick Hitters is next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Did you wake up today with the same amount of energy that you did 1, 3, 5, 7 years ago? If the answer to that question is no, it's possible that's due to low testosterone, and they can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health. The question that they ask is, how can we unlock your inner champion? And for different people, that means different things. It could be low testosterone. They'll figure out where your levels are at that first appointment. And if you're on the lower end of the healthy normal for a guy your age, well, they could boost you back up to the top end of that, get you feeling like the best version of yourself. Could be something else, though. Could be erectile dysfunction. Maybe you want help losing some of that unwanted weight that you maybe gained over the holidays. They can find out exactly what unlocking your inner champion means for you. For others, maybe it's vitamin infusions. You could find out about their cardiovascular testing and the red light therapy programs for you. They've got it all at Victory Men's Health. 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out online today at victorymenshealth.com. That's Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone on BK. On the next segment, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? You're going up against Dylan Holloway today. We'll have 3 different contestants. One of them will be going home with a pair of Blues tickets and a signed hockey puck by Dylan Holloway, which as of today, going to be worth some money, Alex, whenever this guy retires.
Buddy.
So, Dylan Holloway signed hockey puck, pair of Blues tickets. That's coming up in the next segment to the winner in our game of Can You Beat the Blues? But right now, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Let's start out with the big news coming out of the weekend. Deebo Samuel officially traded, as we discussed on Friday, to the San Francisco 49ers, or from the San Francisco 49ers to the Washington Commanders. They got a day 3 pick in return. It was effectively a salary dump for the 49ers. And Alex, there's news coming out over the weekend that they might be trading another receiver. Sounds like they might also be interested in trading Brandon Ayuk after signing him last year to that long-term extension. Does this make sense to you at all?
No, not trading both of them. Deebo Samuel made sense. It seemed like things were trending in this direction for how both sides felt about each other. Man, you gave all the money to Brandon Ayuk because you thought he was a mainstay. Who's your receiver next year's?
I mean, I guess their first-round pick from last year, Ricky Pearsall, and then what's his name? Third and what's his name?
This is a bad sign that we don't remember what his name was.
Jennings. He's a legitimately good player. I like him,
he's
but
solid.
he's a number 3 in my opinion.
Okay, but you think that is what makes this team better with Brock Purdy as the quarterback?
So, T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this before I give my thought.
I don't like the idea of trading both of them. And the reason that I really don't like it, and maybe I'm off by saying this, you're about to pay Brock Purdy. So if I'm about to pay my quarterback, who is, I mean, I think we all agree, 10 to 15th best quarterback in the league, you got to pay that guy mostly just so you avoid the quarterback purgatory, even though we all probably agree he's going to get too much. I don't then want to take away every single weapon that he has around him right after I just give him this huge contract. So that's the whole reason that I don't like trading both. I don't mind if you're going to move on from Deebo, get something in return, and let's just be honest, I'm not sure he bounces back or not. So why not just take a flyer with that late round pick? I would not do both of these if I'm them, and especially after dealing with the crap that happened last offseason to get him signed.
So I'm of two minds on this. One, I think it makes very little sense in this regard. You're not going to get a lot for Brandon Ayuk. He's got a bloated contract, and more importantly, he's coming off of a torn ACL last season? Got hurt at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to give you a ton for a guy that has a big contract and has a torn ACL that he's trying to come back from? So he might not even be ready to be 100% until the 2026 season. Why am I giving up a big asset for that? And if you're the 49ers, why is now the time when you're doing this? It doesn't save you any money. In fact, it actually costs you more to trade him this year than it would to just have him on the roster. I think it's silly season. I think this is one of those things that gets out there, and I don't really know why. I think it's possible the front office or the ownership maybe even is annoyed that they gave him that contract and they feel like it was a mistake at this point. So that's why it's getting out there, hey, we would like to get rid of this contract, but then they're going to see what the offers are and they're going to be like, well, there's no reason for us to make that move if we're not getting anything of substance in return. I think this time next year, we will be having these conversations and they will be very real, because what's happening is they are coming to the realization in San Francisco, our window is closed. It happens like that. It's why we talk so much this year about the Detroit Lions, man. These windows come and go real quick. You got 3 years typically to take advantage of it in the league. And if you don't capitalize in that 3-year window, it's over. It's why I fully expect the Eagles to be hyper-aggressive this offseason. If it's true that Myles Garrett could become available at any point this offseason, you bet your ass the Eagles are going to be in on that, because they want to win as many Super Bowls as they can while they can. It's really hard to do. The Chiefs are the outlier. The Patriots are the outlier. If you're one of these other teams that doesn't have Mahomes, doesn't have Tom Brady, get yours while you can. 49ers are learning this lesson the hard way right now, and I think they're really regretting what they ended up doing at the end of last offseason.
I'm actually upset that we're not going to have the 49ers on Hard Knocks, because I'd love to hear the GM basically say on camera, these guys suck and we want to get rid of them.
Yeah, we messed up. This time last year, we messed up with what we did. All right, NFL quick hitters, I do want to get to one takeaway from this week's NFL Combine. Dude, huge week for Mizzou. Huge week for Mizzou. Luther Burden was awesome. 4.40 at 205 pounds is great speed for him. He also looked awesome in the gauntlet drill, which I know some people will ho-hum it. It does kind of matter. Your guy, T-Bone, Puka Nacua, was great. It was like the thing that got him drafted. Was he was awesome in the gauntlet drill, and it's when they first started using some of those next gen numbers of the how fast are you running while going through it, and do you look smooth while running fast. That's what Burden did. Looked good in that. But the guy that won the combine this weekend was Armand Mimbu.
Oh, he looked awesome.
Did you guys see his 40?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's making those.
Oh, dude, it sounded like you were listening to some kind of a tennis match.
Or
with the way
something
that he was
else.
growling going
I
through
thought
it.
maybe you were watching Animal Planet over there.
Or something else. Skinamax.
He was growling every 10 meters he would growl. And then he got to the final 10 meters of the 40. It was amazing. He ends up running a sub 540 at 320 pounds.
Do you think the scouts were like, hey, man, you were awesome, but please stop making those noises?
Second best
I know.
40-yard
You're the
dash
best.
of
Do
any
it.
of the offensive linemen, had the best broad jump of any of the offensive linemen. Armand Mimbu, former Missouri Tiger, was considered to be the third best high school prospect on his own football team, and now he's probably going in the top 10 of the NFL
Good
draft.
for Mizzou,
Good
man.
for him, man.
Yeah, and he's going to be a really good draft pick for somebody, especially for how highly touted offensive linemen are in this draft. I think I saw Kuiper's most recent mock draft. It had like 5 offensive linemen taken before there was a wide receiver taken in this draft.
A really bad receiver draft.
Yeah.
Burden made himself a lot of money this weekend because of what he did.
Which, speaking of the wide receiver, did you see this? Ian Rappaport, T. Higgins getting the franchise tag officially, and they're going to hope to try and do a long-term deal with
Sounds
him.
like Trey Hendrickson is going to be the one that is the odd man out there. They're going all offense.
Well, at least the defense wasn't that bad this year.
Yeah, good thing that the defense wasn't a difference maker at all for this team.
I'm really curious to see where Hendrickson ends up because he's a good defensive end, a really good defensive end.
He's like a perfect
Eagles.
bring him in for number 2. Oh,
Eagles.
Bills.
Yeah, one of those
Get
teams
rid of
that's
Von
like,
Miller.
can we please do something to improve our pass rush? Lions. Lions make
he
a lot
makes
of
a
sense.
lot of sense
They
for the
don't have the
Lions.
money, I don't think, to throw at him,
probably
but
not,
one
but-
of those teams is probably where he ends up. Honorable mention to Brady Cook, by the way. Ran a 4.6. Was an absolute
Yeah,
freak
that boy.
athlete on the field. Good for Brady Cook. I don't know that he's going to get drafted, but at a minimum, he's a guy that probably put himself on some radars.
Hey,
where,
man, if Stetson Bennett can get drafted, anybody can.
dude, honestly, he's a really good athlete, and as a backup, you could do worse than a guy that can come in and
It's the best job in professional sports.
yeah.
That or backup
Amen
goalie
to
for
that.
a soccer team.
DeVito's been in the league for like 3 years now.
I forgot
He's the only
DeVito
one
was
still
still
on
in
the
league.
Giants roster, by the way.
He's the only quarterback.
Yeah.
I think
Number
the
one
Jets have
QB.
no quarterbacks.
Oh, well, that's they could use Brady Cook. Yeah.
They had no quarterbacks last year, too.
If you're one of these, like if you're the Baltimore Ravens, right? Typically, these teams don't want to change their entire offense whenever they have like a guy that is a dual threat quarterback, but he really excels with his legs. Yeah, Brady Cook would be a decent backup there, or Washington. Hey, Brady Cook would be a fine backup there. He's probably a third string guy on these teams, but dude, that's a really good gig for Brady Cook. You can make $1 million a year for a few years.
I'll take it.
It's not a bad place to be if you're him. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. There's some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? We've got Brian, we've got Noah, we've got Richard. They're all going up against Dylan Holloway today. We'll see which one of them can beat the Blues here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's, officially open, and the weather is perfect for you to get out there off of Chippewa and just sit back and enjoy some famous frozen custard. Fourth generation family-run business in St. Louis. It is a year-round tradition, and it's not just going out there to get ice cream, which it's not ice cream, it's frozen custard. Remember that. But you're also going to enjoy a St. Louis tradition. And whatever type of a recipe you're wanting, whatever mixture you want to go with, you can get it at Ted Drew's. They've got tons of different flavors, concrete, shakes, floats, malts, whatever you want. My daughter, she loves Oreo with marshmallows, white vanilla custard. And you can get whatever flavor you're hoping for out at Ted Drew's. And build those traditions with families and friends by getting out to Ted Drew's off of Chippewa. And while you're out there, make sure you walk across the gift shop to check out the Ted Drew's apparel, the Ted Drew's hats, the gift cards, souvenirs, everything St. Louis you want is there for you in the Ted Drew's gift shop. So what are you waiting for? Get on out there. Kick off the spring season with Ted Drew's famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tanner Henderson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues fell to the Stars last night, but they'll be back in action on Wednesday as they head out west to take on the LA Kings. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 8:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we play a game each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. It is called Can You Beat the Blues? And people have been up and down on this, but, we'll see if today we have different results.
Today's
Brian,
the day.
Noah, Ed, you're going up against Dylan Holloway in today's edition of Can You Beat the Blues. The winner will go home with a pair of tickets to see the Blues versus the Ducks. That's coming up on March 16th. That's the next Blues home hockey game. It's going to be 2 weeks before we see them back at the Enterprise Center. Signed hockey puck also by Dylan Holloway will be going to the winner today. We've got 3 contestants. They're going up against Dylan Holloway. We begin with Brian. Brian, we appreciate you joining the show today, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing really well. So have you heard Can You Beat the Blues before? Do you know the rules of the game, my friend?
Yeah. I've listened to it a couple times.
All right,
That away,
fantastic.
Brian.
For those listening at home, the rules of the game are very simple. I'm going to give Brian 15 seconds to name as many different things as he can in a category. Whenever that clock stops, we'll give the number on how many things he was able to list. We will then hear what Dylan Holloway did in the exact same category, and we'll give the margin of either victory or defeat for Brian. Whoever ends with Brian, Noah, or Ed, the highest the margin of victory against Holloway, they're going home with the prize for today. All right, Brian, today you're going up against Dylan Holloway, and your category is musicians, musical artists. How many different musicians or musical artists can you name in 15 seconds? On your mark, get set, go.
Usher, Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, Taylor Swift, the Beatles, Beastie Boys, Green Day, Rancid, CKY.
All right. We got you there. Brian, we got you with 9, and that was a good variety there.
Yeah, Brian, I don't know if you just listed off artists on your iPod. I'd love to know the process of how you just came up with musical artists for that one.
I just started somewhere, and I don't know how I
You
ended up
started
where
with
I did.
Usher
but-
and ended with CKY. It was incredible.
Out of curiosity, Brian, how old are you?
I am 36.
That feels
I was
right.
going to say 33.
I felt like he was right in our range. It was kind of listing off music that we would go through, like from when we were 15 to where we are today.
Man, I didn't know CKY, so I knew he was older than me.
Yeah. I guess you don't know CKY.
All
That
right,
makes sense.
Brian, let's hear how Dylan Holloway does with his musicians.
Drake, Lil Baby, Lil Durk, Dasha, Jason Aldean, Morgan Wallen, Zach Bryan, Noah Khan, Post Malone.
2 of those I knew.
That's a lot of hip-hop artists at the beginning, and then we took a hard right turn.
Are we
with
sure?
country music.
Are we sure Lil Durk is a musical artist?
100% positive,
That's just
yes.
not a noise he made?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, 9 for Dylan Holloway.
Yep.
Damn,
So we got an even margin with Brian. Brian, he knew his music pretty well. So Dylan Holloway, Brian tied. Brian right now, our leader in the clubhouse with an even score going up against Holloway. Let's go out to hear from Noah. Noah, how you doing today, my man?
Doing great.
All right, Noah, do you understand the rules of the game?
Yeah.
All right. Noah, today your category going up against Dylan Holloway is sodas. Name as many different sodas as you can in 15 seconds. On your
Can
mark.
I do like different flavors of the same soda?
Sodas.
Different flavors.
If they are different cans, you can do different flavors. Noah, we got to hurry up here. 15 seconds on your mark, get set, go.
All right. Coca-Cola, Cherry Coke, Orange Vanilla Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, 7-Up, Cherry 7-Up, Cherry Pepsi, Cranberry Sprite, Cherry 7-Up, Fanta.
I don't know if he's right, but cranberry 7-Up sounds disgusting.
Is that a real thing, Noah?
I'm looking
I
it
think
up.
it is.
But during the holiday season, you get the cranberry Sprite.
Yeah.
It's actually not bad.
Cranberry 7-Up is
I've seen it.
oh God.
That sounds good.
No, that sounds disgusting.
No?
guess if you need a good bowel movement, maybe it's there for you.
I kind of like that.
I don't.
I like the idea of that.
Noah thought that one was funny. Noah gets it too, though. Sometimes you need a good bowel movement. You got to go get some cranberries.
All right,
I was just thinking different flavors of the sodas I was listening, and that just popped into my head.
I respect you. He's
were
the
good.
first one that has asked us a follow-up question.
Yeah, I know.
to the rules,
I didn't know what to do
respect
actually
it.
to it.
All right, Noah, you're going up against Dylan Holloway. Let's see how he does with this soda.
Coke, Pepsi, ginger ale, cream soda, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, Fresca, Fanta.
Fresca. What is he, a 95-year-old woman?
I got an 8 for him.
I got an 8.
All right, that's a +3 for
That's
Noah.
Noah said Noah.
That was terrible. I'm sorry, Noah.
No, it wasn't Noah. It was really good. You liked it.
You like that? I'm sure he's never heard that before. All right,
not
let's
at
go
all.
on to Ed. Ed, you're going up against Dylan Holloway. Unfortunately for Brian, he has been eliminated for today,
Sorry,
but
Brian.
you're trying to beat Noah. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling a little tight. It's okay.
A little tight?
Where are you tight
Man,
at?
I got an IT band issue from running this weekend, so we're in the same
workout.
Yeah.
Same category
Congrats,
there.
guys, on your tight muscles that you lift all the
I
time.
apologize.
T-Bone and I just are exhausted walking, you know?
Trying to get some
Hurry
small
up.
talk with Ed here. Ed, you're going up against Dylan Holloway
nap when I go
today.
home.
On the line for you is a pair of tickets to see the Blues versus the Ducks and a signed hockey puck by Dylan Holloway. Either yourself or Noah will be going home with that prize today. Your category today going up against Dylan Holloway is the following. Things that you would take with you on a fishing trip. Items that you would take with you on a fishing trip. Name as many of those items as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark. Get set. Go.
Bait, reel, pole, boat, food, water, salt, pepper, eggs, bacon, breakfast, lures, weights.
That was well done. Ed, are you a fisherman?
I go catching, yes.
I go catching. That's
I had
awesome.
him. How would you have him for?
I had it
I had
at
13.
12.
I had him at 12 too.
I'm not going to count,
didn't count breakfast?
food.
I didn't count breakfast since he read off breakfast.
I was counting the well, I guess that's true. But like you say food and then you went through specifics.
Okay, either way.
I'm
we'll
not
go
going to
with
be a
12.
stickler here, but I'd like to give him 10.
All right, 12 it is. Dylan Holloway, we'll
Sorry,
see
I
how
love you.
he does with things that he takes on a fishing trip.
Probably like a hook, bait, fishing rod, boots, a hat, sunglasses, sunscreen.
All right, he gets a
Said a
7.
hook.
That is a plus
Said probably.
5, which means, Ed, congratulations, Ed, baby, let's go. You are winning a pair of tickets to see the Blues versus the Ducks on March 16th. That is the next Blues home game, and a signed hockey puck by Dylan Holloway. Congratulations, my friend. You can indeed beat the Blues.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you
Absolutely.
go. Well, here you go, Ed.
Ed, we'll get your information. We'll send you a text and find out exactly how we can get those tickets to you. So congratulations to Ed. If you missed out on your opportunity today, you'll be able to go up against another Blue next week in our game of Can You Beat the Blues? That was well done by Ed today.
Yeah, he should be happy, though, that we gave him those, because otherwise he would have been in a tie with Noah.
He literally could have had 2 more drop off, and it would have still been fine.
Oh, I thought it was 3. Oh,
ended up
okay,
with a
yeah.
+5.
Yeah, you would have been good there. Yeah. I didn't know if I liked food. You can't name specifics. Once you go into a category and you say the category, everything else is off the board.
Yeah, you can't then go up to like the top line.
Yeah.
You can't say
be like food.
soda.
Yeah. And then list every
Coke.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a stickler. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I just like to be precise.
I guess you could technically say soda and then Coke, but it'd be a different category entirely. With Alex
No.
and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care who are taking care of your HVAC system. Whether you got a brand new one or you got a 25-year-old one, you need the company that's going to keep that lasting for you as long as possible. And I speak so highly because since 2016, they've been taking care of my older units, 26-year-old one, 23-year-old one, and Classic Air Care maintained that for as long as we stayed in that home. And it's a perfect time to call them, too, as the weather's starting to get warm. Now is when you want to call about the maintenance agreement. Get on their schedule so that they can come out and fine-tune that unit, the HVAC system for you before you got to flip on the AC with all the hot summer days that'll be coming up very soon. You get on that maintenance agreement. If things arise, problems, you get priority when you're scheduling your appointment because you're a part of the maintenance agreement with Classic Air Care. So give them a call today. You can schedule online to get that maintenance agreement out and check out your unit. Just do me a favor when you schedule. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. You can schedule online or call them today. That's Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
I thought you guys were especially great today.
I thought I was pretty awesome today.
I thought I was good.
Yeah.
I mean, we mostly talk blue sauces over here.
Were you, like, searching for a compliment for yourself?
No, I just thought you guys were really good today. I thought everybody was listening to each other, which is not always the case on this show.
And
There's
during
only
the
one
commercial
bad
breaks.
moment. T-Bone forgot that we had said something on the air, and it's fine. It's perfectly
Are we
fine.
going to blame me after the whole, Quintana signing thing?
Yep, we're just going to blame T-Bone. But I thought it was a really good show for you guys.
I don't think he had a good show.
And if you guys missed any of it, you can check it out on the podcast page. Katie Wu joined us earlier today. Alex explained why Colton Parayko should begin consideration for Norris Trophy votes this year. He gave, I thought, really good research on how this year,
Tony.
No, seriously, how this year's team compares to the 2019 Dallas Stars and what Jim Montgomery was able to pull off with that team. It's remarkable, honestly, how closely those two teams are aligned at this point in the regular season. Alex, we'll finish out on this because we talked earlier today in the Open about how good the Blues have looked basically since the Four Nations face-off. In your opinion, with where the Blues are at today, if you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, are you selling, buying, or staying where you're at?
I'm buying. I'm looking at my team, and everything that I have done leading up to this point this season was push for a playoff spot. You bring in Cam Fowler in the middle of the year. You offer Sheep, Broberg, and Holloway. And frankly, all those have paid off. Now you're 1 point out. I understand there's teams that have games in hand on you. I'd buy. I'd look at my team and I'd say, where am I weakest at? And I think it's that third line to be consistent. And this is me saying they're weak where they've been producing points on a consistent basis. But I do think you look at this and you say, can we find an upgrade at the center position for the third line? Maybe you Sundqvist as a winger and Matthew Joseph is kind of a revolving door. Can we find an upgrade there? And frankly, right now, I don't know what that first-round pick does for you in this year's draft if it's going to be a playoff team. So, yeah, I would be cautiously buying. I'm not selling the farm. None of my top prospects are going the other way, but I'd be looking to see if there's an upgrade that I can make to my bottom 6.
If there was like the needle, the New York Times needle that you see on election night, well, if it was leaning towards one way or the other, like there, on one side is buy, on the other side is sell, and in the middle is hold. I think going into the Four Nations face-off, it was leaning towards sell.
Oh, yeah, I think it was basically all the way over on sell.
It was a pretty strong lean towards sell. And then when they got back and they started playing well, I think it veered more and more towards hold. Mm-hmm. And I think over the weekend, with not just the win on Saturday, but also the way that they played yesterday against Dallas, I'm like starting to verge into the buy category. I'm not selling the farm. It's not like Dvorsky's not in play.
No.
Snuggerud not in play. That's not what I'm looking at here. Honestly, even first round pick, like maybe if it's the right guy.
It's got to be a good piece coming in return.
I am a cautious buyer at this year's deadline with where they're at right now. I don't think a lot is going to change based on the one game that they're going to play between now and the actual trade deadline itself, but can't hurt, man. If you win that game on Wednesday night against LA and you're potentially even in the playoffs going into the deadline, it's really hard to sell at that point in time. So I think they've made Doug Armstrong's job in some ways harder, but in a lot of ways a lot easier because they've given him clarity going into the deadline.
I mean, Doug said he wanted to see 4 points coming out of the break against Winnipeg and Colorado. You didn't mission accomplish that. You got 3, but then you went on to get 9 of 12 possible points in 6 games against 4 top teams in their conference or division.
For Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. John over on the YouTube chat asks a question that I think is totally fair. Alex, who are you buying at the deadline? Not arguing, just curious. Alex is going to present some proposals to us over the next couple of days here on the show. Might even do a Tender Tuesday tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario.
Right,
so stay tuned for that.
Swipe.
Plenty more to get into when it comes to the St. Louis Blues. Hoping to get some guests on for you guys leading into the deadline as well. So we'll talk about that as we go along this week. The Fast Lane, though, has a lot to talk about coming up next here on 101 ESPN.